Ladies and gentlemen, we are now live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and sportinarium.com/player because, well, baby, it might be cold outside, but we are going to definitely warm things up here and talk all the latest happenings here in the world of sports. We'll get into the NFL playoffs, Hall of Fame vote, maybe some NBA talk, Tampa Bay, Montreal, and maybe some thoughts on the NHL in between. And we'll do it here with, of course, four of the best that Sportswire Radio has to offer. And that's the wrong station. We're Sportswire Radio, not ESPN. So for those that had an ESPN jingle that went off, that's our competitor. We want to not acknowledge our competitors. But without further ado here on the Sports Report and on Sportswire Radio, guys, how are we?
Doing good.
Doing good, Tom. Doing good.
I'm
doing fantastic.
I could see that, the Brute Force, because you are well dressed. I mean, I was speaking with everybody here off the air. You are well dressed to be at either a wedding or at a mock jury or a jury duty, whatever you want to call it at this point, this day and age. Clearly, two things I have no experience on, but be that as it may, I mean, guys, a lot to get into. But I want to get into the first thing, and that is the New York Giants have hired a new general manager here. Obviously, Joe Schoen, and wanted to get the thoughts here first off with Justin Gianelli because I saw Justin's head nod, and I always like to hear from Justin first, so couldn't think of a better way to lead off here. And Justin, give me your thoughts here on the Giants getting here a new general manager as they start now their search for getting a new head coach.
Yeah, I mean, give the Giants credit. They moved very swiftly with the whole process. I mean, think about it. They were one of 4 teams to have a general manager opening. The Bears and Vikings also fired their general managers, as well as more recently Mike Mayock being fired by the Raiders. So, I mean, for them to move as swiftly as they did, they obviously zeroed in on the candidates that they wanted to interview, and and eventually they settled in on Joe Schoen from the Buffalo Bills. And it's always good to you never know how these general managers turn out. We could only guess because in reality, we don't know who these guys are. But
Mike Mayock was one that was an interesting one, to say the least.
I mean, he's a guy we knew because he was working on the NFL Network. But with Joe Schoen, I mean, you're getting a guy coming from a successful organization. I mean, what Brandon Beane has done as the general manager of the Buffalo Bills over the last several years, with from hiring Sean McDermott to drafting Josh Allen to building the talent around Josh Allen to make the Bills successful year after year. I mean, it's a good model to follow, and we'll see if Joe Schoen can fix the Giants situation, because Buffalo was in every bit of a mess that the Giants are in right now. I mean, they were in a near 20-year drought from the postseason, before Beane took over, and it's a good start for the Giants, but now it's really up to Joe to assemble the right front office. So he's got the right assistants, he's got the right scouting department, and that they can move forward with rebuilding the Giants. So this is a good step for them, but ultimately, we will see over the next couple of seasons.
Certainly, and John Gonzalez, of course, is in the house, and John was saying a lot here before we went on the air, and John's got a funny one-liner here, and of course, it's directed at the Brute Force Brad Weiss. I have a feeling this is going to be an interesting night between John Gonzalez and the Brute Force Brad Weiss, but John's line was funny. He goes, "Oh no, the Brute Force looks like he's working on Wall Street." Yeah, I mean, you did look like a little bit of a stock trade. I remember when my father would come home when he worked on Wall Street, although I think you looked a lot more well-dressed than he did, but certainly you do have a little bit of that Wall Street, like margin clerk, stock trade, whatever they call it these days.
Just the briefcase.
Yeah, whatever it was. Well, my father couldn't afford the briefcase. He had the, as you'd call it, I guess, the UPS postal bag. That was his way of coming into work. But Brute Force does look like he has the briefcase here, to say the least. And obviously, he's going to have a briefcase full of news, I'm sure, when it comes to Mr. Gonzalez. But I'll get to the Brute Force last, because I want to save certainly the biggest for last. Not the best for last, but the biggest for last. And shout-outs, of course, to Aunt Laura, who's watching. Got to give a huge shout-out to Aunt Laura. And, of course, Anthony J. Finkel, my boy here, who says Friday night sports night football with the boys. I mean, hell yes, and huge shout out to Anthony Finkel. And of course, little known fact, Anthony Finkel and his band's Winter Theory of Soul Menta have also provided us music here on the station in the past. So obviously, huge shout out to Anthony Finkel because he's an incredible bass player, as also being an incredible business owner and man of our great communities, also certainly in Southern Brooklyn, like in Ditmas Park and elsewhere. And John Gonzalez has another comment, but I'll save that when we get to the Brew Force. But Chris, Giants have a new GM here. It's definitely going to be a long road here for the Giants to get back to relevance. And give me your thoughts here on our new Giants general manager.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea that they hired the GM first before the coach. So that's at least they did it the right way. And now I was reading something where it's going to be between Daboll and Flores for the head coaching job.
I think, did you put that out there on our Twitter group? I think it was you or somebody did, right?
Also Dan Quinn.
Oh, and Quinn too? Oh, okay.
Dan Quinn is in the mix
That's
too.
interesting. Two defensive guys and one offensive guy. So that'll be interesting which direction they go. And also, what are they going to do with Daniel Jones? I mean, he's still a huge question mark coming into this. What are they going to do? Are they going to draft a quarterback this year? You think they're going to run one more year with Daniel Jones and see if it's Daboll? Can he kind of figure him out? So it'll be interesting because they don't have a good cap situation. But then again, no team does, and then they figure it out. So at least they're heading in the right direction for Giant fans. They got somebody up top. Now they're going to hire a coach, and then away they go for the offseason. So it's a good start for them, and hopefully they find their coach now.
Certainly, no question about it. And John Gonzalez also adds in that the Giants are interviewing Leslie Frazier, who has some coaching experience. I mean, so I could certainly say that. And Anthony Finkel chimes in and says, first and last time I bet on them boys. We'll get to them. We'll definitely get to that for sure. Because I do
listen to us.
Well, some people listened to us, some people didn't. So obviously,
all right. Well, if he did, he would know. Don't bet on Dallas last week.
Well, John Gonzalez certainly. I mean, his record in picks, and he was messaging me on Facebook. I don't want to spoil it because I know the Brew Force is going to definitely unload. I mean, he's definitely going to unload some of our professional wrestlers did earlier in the station today. So obviously,
and by the way, who was the first one who was right about the Cardinals being frauds and first round exits? This guy. Right
it was here. Justin Gianelli. That goes back to, I think, in November. You said that back in November.
That even dated back to like the first loss against Green Bay. I knew,
which was like November.
Something was not going to be right about the Cardinals, and that they were not making a deep run this year. I knew it.
Well, they didn't make a deep run. And before we get to Patrick Trotty, we're joined by Mr. Billy McInerney. And Billy, my friend, always good to have you, my friend. And I could definitely tell you're in Rangers gear. I could tell you're not in Islanders gear. You're in Rangers gear. So obviously good to have you, though, my friend. We'll get to you in a few minutes. And Patrick Trotty, obviously good to have you, my friend. And condolences, unfortunately, on the Patriots, but wanted to get your perspective on the New York Giants and their new general manager.
Yeah, I think it's a good hire. From what I've heard, they're going to give him, obviously they're going to give him the reins, but they're giving him free rein to kind of mold if they want to do a full rebuild or if they want to kind of just draft the best talent available and just see what they have with Daniel Jones. Hopefully he's healthy. And I mean, you're only as good as the people around you. So it's imperative that they pick the right coach. In my mind, I would go with an offensive mind because the real question mark about them is Daniel Jones. So bring in an offensive mind and see what you can do from there. But so far, like Justin said, it was a quick search. They got it out of the way. Now you get your coach, and then it's just all about the draft and getting Jones healthy and see what they go from there. But it's a good start for the Giants.
Although I'm not going to get excited on hiring a general manager just yet. I mean, okay, you got
small victories. At this point in the year, if you're not in the playoffs, what are you selling the fan base? You got to sell them a new direction.
We'll certainly know more once they hire the head coach. Yep. That's for sure.
I'm going to say one thing. They better not raise season ticket prices and ticket prices altogether for the Giants. Coming after this season, I mean, I don't know.
But what if they're throwing a free Coke? Is that going to, a free Pepsi? Is that going to like steer you if they do raise it? Because they did do that last year, right? They gave everybody the free Pepsi.
I'm a big soda drinker, so you know what? A free Pepsi here, a free Coke. I mean, anybody who knows me, I mean, if you're giving me a free Coke, you know what? Maybe
That's
get
like
back to
$10,
me on that.
right? Or $15 at the game. So
I know.
Yeah.
Listen, it's definitely an arm and a leg, to say the least, as the old expression would be. But I gotta get to him because I'm looking at him. He's right in front of me, and I know he's ready to go. He's pumped up. He literally just came here from only watching the JV team at Plainview JFK, but our varsity team. And that is the Brute Force Brad Weiss. And what a week it was for the Brute Force in terms of our Golden Eagles. We'll get to them at the end of the show. Our Plainview JFK boys, JV team. And of course, most importantly, the Brute Force's picks, where that's right, he was 6 for 6. I mean, certainly this was one of those moments and weeks that the Brute Force is going to probably replay for the rest of his life. I mean, the Brute Force, you've got an audience here. John Gonzalez was ready to run for the hills. We convinced him, though, to come on here and talk with you. And obviously, your thoughts here on the Giants general manager. And if you want to take a victory lap here, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I definitely got to start with a little bit of a victory lap. How about them Cowboys? They don't let me down. That song was on point last week, and boy, did I look like a genius when I sang that song, because it's exactly what happened. And those terrible towels, John Gonzalez, I hope you're waving them with the Steelers, because they're terrible, all right? And boy, did they prove that they were. You, John Gonzalez, you said that you were picking them. So shame on you. You should have listened to me at least on that one. But, John Gonzalez, let's see what happens this week. We'll see what happens. But just being fun. Also, for those watching, I am wearing my shirt and tie. I just came from coaching, and we got my JV team got their biggest win of the year tonight. We are now 8-5. We won 7 straight games. So the guys are doing great. I'm in a great mood. And the varsity guys are now doing great too. They're 11-2 on the year and have a long winning streak as well. So it's a great night, and I'm so happy to be here. But certainly when it comes to the Giants, yeah, I'm happy for them. They got their act together. They got a guy finally who's outside the organization, doesn't have a relationship with anybody. I think that's the biggest point here. I mean, get a guy who actually has some knowledge and hasn't been a friend of a friend in the Giants organization or a family member. I think it's good that, this guy, what is it? Sean, whatever the hell his last name is.
Isaac Sean.
Listen, I don't know whatever his name is, but he has the credibility. Okay, he has the knowledge, and certainly, the Giants needed that. I think that everybody said it already. The fact that they already, got on this before everybody else, they did their interviews, they got the guy they wanted, and listen, there were a few guys out there, that some Giant fans wanted the guy. I forgot his first name. I think it's Adams. I forgot his first name. But, he was a candidate, listen, in the end, this guy, is an outsider. He has knowledge. He's been with a good organization. I think it's a good move for the Giants. But their next 2 moves, let's see what the head coach is. And then, like you guys said, the big one, quarterback. Who's going to be the quarterback for the Giants?
Yeah, I'm not getting excited yet on a general manager. And listen, the Brute Force, I'm not one when it comes to pronunciating names, because I was getting ripped in England all night here, British Standard Time, when it came to pronunciating Lancashire. I couldn't even say it. I mean, I still can't even say it. It's Lancashire, Lancashire, whatever it might be. So one of these little towns, which is a huge stronghold for us, I was getting ripped to town all night from that. So I'm not going to talk about who's how to pronunciate what here, when, and why. But Billy McInerney is our New York Giants fan. He knows the Giants better than anybody. Of course, he has covered them in the past for Elite Sports. And Billy, good to have you here. Always good to be with you, my friend. And give me your thoughts here on the Giants and their new general manager.
Thanks, Tom. I like the hire. I mean, almost anyone can look like a good hire from the start. There was, Adam Gase of the Jets really didn't, but in general, anyone can look like a good hire when they're first announced. I think Brad's absolutely right. Getting someone from outside the Giants organization was paramount here. I get when George Young was a GM, you wanted the continuity, but he's not the GM anymore. He hasn't been for 20 years. Clearly the organization has lost its way. I like how the Bills have built their team. I like the way they did things. I like that they kind of built the team and then got the quarterback they wanted instead of forcing that pick before the guy they wanted was there. I think that's a good roadmap for the Giants to follow. He certainly seemed to have a big say with the Bills. I mean, I'm reserving judgment because, again, it's so easy to think anyone's going to be a good GM when they're starting. But certainly I think he was one of the better options, if not the best option available to the Giants. So, but the head coach he has to pick a good head coach. That's really the first step here now.
That's why I can't get excited, because you have draft picks, you have free agency, you have cap issues, you have to figure out coach, quarterback. That's why I'm not getting excited yet at a GM. And John Gonzalez has a few funny comments that I have to get to. And he says, damn Steelers, never picking them again. Well, John, unfortunately, I mean, you're going to probably live that one down for a long time. And he also says, which I'm sure the brute force's ego is going to go up here big time if it hasn't already, especially after the week he's had when it comes to our Golden Eagles and obviously his own team at Plainview JFK, and of course his 6-for-6 record-setting week in picks. He says now, I bow to you, the brute force. Have mercy on me. Wow. I mean, the brute force. I mean, I don't remember Doug Levy saying this when he was guarding against you. I don't remember the Effort brothers saying that or Alec Willis, but meanwhile, John Gonzalez has gone on the record and saying, have mercy on him. So clearly the brute force, poor Mr. Gonzalez here is definitely he's in retreat, to say the least here. But obviously, we'll certainly see what happens here when it comes to the Giants. And I did want to touch upon it very quickly because Justin touched upon it, and that the Raiders are going to be looking for a new general manager in their own right when it comes to Mike Mayock. And again, I guess a mixed bag with Mayock, to be putting it kindly. I guess on the field, the results were a mixed bag here with the Raiders, but his drafting and his track record pretty much was a mixed bag, to say the least. And I'll go with Justin first here. When it comes to the Raiders and looking for a general manager, how is that tied to their fate with their current coach, Rich Bisaccia?
Well, I think that Mark Davis really is going to want to make the splashy hire. I think he's going to want to make the Jim Harbaugh type head coaching hire. So I really don't see a scenario in which they retain Rich Bisaccia. I mean, I guess I'll leave a small 5% window for Bisaccia. But, Vegas is in an interesting spot right now because they're not they're almost like Minnesota. They're not a bad football team. Obviously, they made the playoffs. Minnesota didn't. But Minnesota was never a team that bottomed out. And, but Rick Spielman was there for a long time. Mike Mayock had a very shady, a bad track record in terms of the people they drafted. On the field, they weren't. On the field, they really weren't terrible. In the Mayock Gruden era, and then Bisaccia had taken over mid this season. But when you have 2 first-round picks get arrested or do stupid things from the same draft class last year, I mean that's a huge black mark on your resume. And obviously Mark Davis feels like totally starting over, which leads me to my next point is, what is the future of Derek Carr in Las Vegas? 1 year left on his contract. Could he be a contract that somebody trades for, as a veteran, going for a veteran quarterback instead of drafting one next year? Because, let's be honest, this isn't the best quarterback class we've seen, over the last few years. That's for sure.
It's not the class of 83. Let's put it that way.
Or the class of 04. I mean, could the Giants entertain a trade maybe for Derek Carr? That's an interesting one. I don't, the Raiders are certainly in flux, and I think it definitely is going to lead to a new head coach. And I think Mark Davis is going to want to make a splash.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting rid of the general manager, certainly the coach is going to be.
It's Vegas, and I believe they're getting the Super Bowl in either 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
so
that's
Mark Davis is going to want to have that team Super Bowl ready definitely by the time that the Super Bowl comes to Vegas.
And that's a franchise the last 20 years that has had very, very limited playoff success. And for a long time, that was one of the standard bearers, not just in the NFL, but for professional sports.
The AFC Championship. The AFC Championship prior to the Super Bowl 37 was their last playoff win.
Yeah, 2002. So you're talking about essentially 20 years now. I mean,
years.
It's a generation now. Again, if you're like below the age of like 50, the Raiders at one time were like the premier franchise in the NFL.
Cowboys of the AFC.
Pretty much, yeah. I think pretty fair assessment. I think 4 Super Bowls in like a 14 or 15-year stretch and 3 Super Bowl victories, and they every year won 10 games or at least were over 500.
Very successful. Yeah, very successful franchise in the 70s and 80s, and the early 2000s.
Yeah, Gruden brought it back. Gruden definitely brought it back.
But it's really fallen off the table for the Raiders, and I think they're trying to get back to the glory days.
Well, they're going to find out here. And I saw Billy McInerney a few minutes ago, his face light up here, a couple of different things there. I mean, Billy, what's your thoughts on the Raiders situation? And I almost have to throw it out there because Rich Bisaccia is probably not going to be their head coach. I mean, is that somebody that you think would interview to be the head coach for the Giants? I mean, you take a feeler on that. And what do you make of the whole situation with the Raiders?
Yeah, I mean, moving on from Mayock, I'm not surprised really. I don't think Mark Davis ever wanted Mayock actually making the decisions. I mean, Gruden had the final say on personnel in Oakland, Las Vegas. So I don't really know. I think once Gruden was gone, Mayock's days were very numbered. Certainly, I don't know how much of even the off-field issues with the players they drafted. I don't know how much that was Mag and how much was Gruden ignoring the issues. I mean, I would personally also have gotten rid of Mayock. I think, you brought him in again. You brought him in for one purpose. That purpose is no longer being served. Get a new GM in. Besides the Giants, I don't really think that's going to happen. I think Shane's going to want to go to either Dabble or someone he's a little more familiar with. I think the Raiders should keep Bisaccia, honestly. He guided them through a real turbulent season and got them to the playoffs, something that, the guy they paid $100 million to couldn't do. So I would hang on to him. My face really loved with the Derek Carr trade. I don't know. I don't think that can happen, really, because the Giants have no cap space and have very few moves they can make to clear up cap space realistically. They're in a horrible situation with that. So that was really, I think, the big one that I kind of react to is just I don't see them actually being able to make the cap space to get a Derek Carr or even a Russell Wilson if he becomes available.
You're a Giants fan.
Send someone like Kenny Galladay back and draft picks.
Yeah.
I mean,
even then, though, they're already over the cap. They've got Leonard Williams. They have so many guys with so much guaranteed money already that the only way you can get out of the contracts is to basically push the money down the line, and then you're just creating more issues for yourself. You're not going to be competitive next year anyway. I really think just bite the bullet, let the cap situation be horrible this year, and kind of just get out from under it is the smart play the Giants can make.
Let me ask you a question, Billy. Let's say money's aside and the Giants found a way to make it work, and I don't even know what kind of Houdini act you could pull before I get to John Gonzalez to come out. Well, that's why I said Houdini act. Would you want, Billy, a Derek Carr who would certainly be an upgrade over a Daniel Jones, but maybe is not quite in the upper echelon of quarterbacks? I mean, what would your thoughts be on that? I
would say no because he's not in the upper echelon. I agree he'd be an upgrade over Jones, but he's not that elite quarterback where I know, like, if money's not an object at all, like if there was absolutely no salary cap in the NFL, I would say, yeah, go for it. But I don't think you can completely remove the money from the situation, and you're going to have to pay this guy. He's a free agent after this upcoming season, right? He's a free agent.
One more year.
Yeah,
next season.
You're going to have to pay him top of the market, and he's just not that guy. He's someone you're fine with, like, on a rookie contract where you can load that money up elsewhere and put a great team around him, and he can win you games. But he's not the guy that can carry you to wins the way that, the quarterbacks you want to pay in that tier can. So I would avoid that. I think he's a good quarterback, but I don't want to pay him what he's going to be getting on the market when he becomes a free agent in a year.
And John Gonzalez has a few comments. He says, if Vegas makes a move, it'll be for a big name a la Harbaugh or Peterson. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. He says Mayock's worst pick was Clean Farrell, 4th overall.
Yep.
He also says Giants have a lot of big money duds. Yeah, I mean, well,
yeah,
that's the surprise
they
here.
got a lot of bad contracts.
And I got to give a shout out to somebody who's watching, who is actually a guest here for us when we kick things off on Sportswire Radio at 10 o'clock British Standard Time. And he probably has no idea what we were talking about because he's in England, and that's obviously professional wrestling star Mr. Bob Costin, who's been a huge talk of the LWF. And in fact, Bob was one of the guys trying to coach me on how to pronunciate the name Lancashire Wrestling Federation. So maybe, Bob, I got it right here. So I'm sure you can let me know because I've been getting lit up all day in England about how I can pronunciate that name. So thankfully that they're still with us on the station. But obviously, want to give him a huge shout again. He's in England. So I don't know what they know about the NFL, but Bob, obviously, a huge shout out to you, my friend. Obviously, I'm looking forward to having you come back on here after
they
the
get to
next.
watch the Jaguars every year.
Well, that's true. You know what? I mean, I guess we actually had on a guest. Actually, they're a big tag team. They're actually on the WWE Network, and they're actually former football players in America, and they're from England. So I shouldn't totally say he may not understand everything. But in all seriousness, no, shout out to Mr. Costin. But I want to get to Patrick. Then I'll get around to the other guys here because Patrick had kind of chimed in here a bit with Billy on the back and forth. I mean, what do you make of the whole situation with the Raiders? Are they looking for a coach now also? And give me your thoughts on their situation.
I think they got to look for a new coach. Bisaccia is kind of did the heavy lifting, the grunt work, kind of like what Cully did, just in a better fashion, I guess, because he got into the playoffs. But long term, I guess you give him an interview and you just see if he really wows you. I mean, what are you going to learn that you didn't already know? But I think they go for a big name combo, GM and head coach, and just give some. I think Harbaugh you'd have to give a lot of control to and a lot of money, obviously, to lure him away. So.
And he's historically not been an easy guy to work with, Harbaugh. So I don't know how that would go.
Yeah, I don't. I think the bigger question is Carr.
Here's the other question, and here's the other question when and I still believe that they're going to make a splash. Is you still got to pay Gruden all that money.
Yeah.
And now you're going to pay a second. Now, obviously, I know there's no salary cap against how you pay your coaches. That's out of your own pocket, but. Gruden was getting about $10 million a year. You're going to have to pay Harbaugh at least that, maybe more, to get him to leave Michigan. How willing is Mark Davis to do that? While I do think, like you, they will make the big Harbaugh type splash, or they'll try to at least. When it comes down to it, how willing will they be financially?
And to that point, how willing would a GM? I mean, it's a GM job, but how willing are you with the give and take as far as who makes personnel decisions if Harbaugh comes in?
And you just saw Mayock get fired when Gruden was making the choices, so that's on your mind too, I'm sure.
Right.
Harbaugh is probably only taking the job if he has control of if he has personnel control.
Right.
And I feel like you just went through what you went through with Gruden, and I'm going to assume Harbaugh is not going to have the same skeletons in the closet as Gruden, obviously. But I don't know if I'd want the same type of personality because I kind of get a sense they're the same personalities. I mean, Peterson, I guess I could see because he's won a Super Bowl, so that would kind of make sense here to what John had to say. So, I mean, if the Raiders are making that splash, I don't know if Harbaugh is the guy, but I got to ask Chris because obviously Chris knows Jim Harbaugh better than anybody because he's a Michigan fan. And on top of that, he would also know Doug Peterson well because he's an Eagles fan. So, I mean, from your standpoint, Chris, you know Harbaugh better than anybody. You also know Peterson better than anybody. Are those the guys that you think the Raiders straight up go for?
If they're looking for the big splash, definitely Harbaugh is the guy. But from what I'm reading, a lot of people are saying you can't really guess on what he's going to do. There was some, that it was being leaked that he was interested in coming back into the NFL. But if he was coming back to the Raiders, he would want that, like we just said, he would want full control. Now, like you said, do they want to go through that again, like what they went through with Gruden? I don't know if that's what they want. Maybe they go the Peterson route and they get a GM that works with him. And, but I definitely see more changes coming. And I think right now is the best time to cash in on Carr as well. Trade him now because you got no caps, no dead cap. If you trade him, nothing's guaranteed. Maybe you could get a first-round pick, maybe a second-round pick. trade him away and just kind of reboot the franchise a little bit, because you got to get more talent on that team. How they even won 9 games this year is kind of
It was a miracle, honestly,
Yeah,
miraculous that they made the
because their
playoffs.
draft classes the last couple of years, if you like we said, the first rounders 2 years ago were horrible. This year, Leatherwood was a horrible pick as well. So I don't know where they got. I still don't know how they worked 9 wins out of.
That's why I think Bisaccia should get a shot.
Right,
I mean,
he should.
What a job this guy did. I mean,
but I really think getting like a fresh art for the franchise, a new GM, new head coach, maybe even a new quarterback too. Time to, because with Carr, what have they done? I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, but what have they accomplished?
He's in Kirk Cousins territory, pretty much.
Yeah, he's done nothing there. So
what? Minnesota and the Raiders are kind of in the same boat, more or less.
Right. If a team
which actually could make sense if the Raiders wanted to hire Rick Spielman. I mean, let's be fair. I mean, Minnesota, didn't quite get to the championship level, but because I got to imagine you got the other two, because obviously you wouldn't be rehired by Minnesota, but Chicago and Vegas, they should be talking to Rick Spielman. I mean, look, he got a lot of good players to Minnesota, especially through the draft, whether it's Dalvin Cook, Stephon Diggs, who eventually turned into draft picks, and drafted Justin Jefferson, Harrison Smith, Kendricks, Anthony Barr. There's a lot of talent on that Minnesota team. They did slightly underachieve, and never reach where they should be going. But that's a team that built a lot of talent through the draft and had a lot of players who were key contributors. With Vegas's poor draft record over the last couple of years, getting a guy like that who's had a successful track record it would certainly behoove them to kind of flip the script.
Oh, we'll certainly find out. Obviously, again, certainly the Raiders have decisions along with the Vikings. And before I get the brute force in, John Gonzalez says money means nothing to Vegas. He says Harbaugh has been quoted as saying he was interested in the Giants. I mean, we'll find out. I'm not quite sure where the Giants end up, but I want to get the brute force perspective on it because he is a coach currently. And I'm still of the mind that Bisaccia should get a shot just because of everything that the guys just laid out here pretty much just proved my point that this guy should get another year, especially considering this team, their struggles on the field, off the field, and this guy got him into the postseason. Arguably, they had a puncher's chance at beating the Bengals, and certainly Raider fans are going to feel like that they could have won that game for a number of different reasons. So, for you, the brute force, I mean, what do you make of this situation? And you being a coach, do you think Bisaccia should really get that job to be the full-time coach there?
Well, I'm going to answer that question in a second. I'm just going to have fun with this because, I'm in a good mood today. I'm going to have fun with it. The Raiders just had Mike Mayock and John Gruden as coaches, TV guys on ESPN. Maybe, if they want to be ESPN's Raiders, they could bring in Louis Riddick and Brian Creasy as the coach, or Peyton Manning or Eli Manning as the coach. All right, they want to have all this fun. They could just rename themselves ESPN's Raiders instead of Las Vegas Raiders. All right, and maybe that's the way they want to go because they love ESPN guys who have been on TV. But being real, I mean, they obviously shouldn't do that. I don't think they should hire Louis Riddick. And you know what? To be honest with you, Tom, I 100% agree. I think Rich Bisaccia deserves a second chance. I think he proved that he belongs as a head coach. I think he proved and he has the pulse of the locker room right now. And I think a lot of players want him to stay and remain as coach. So, personally, I think that would be a good move for the Raiders. I think Derek Carr, I think you guys maybe need to give a little more credit there. I think he's above Kirk Cousins.
That's what I think. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I don't think he's bad.
He's a better than Kirk Cousins. I think he's a very good quarterback that, listen, personally, I think they should give him some better wide receivers. I mean, I think they should give him some more. They have a great tight end. Their wide receivers are not great. Listen, obviously, you can't control Henry Ruggs driving a car 115 miles an hour and killing somebody. You can't control that. But what you can control is, maybe getting some, wide receivers in the offseason, maybe getting a few pieces to help out because this team did make the playoffs. They did have a chance against the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think next year, they could be right in the thick of things for another wild card spot again and maybe win a playoff game. So, I mean, oh, Jason. But anyway, I think that, the Raiders should stay with Bisaccia. I think they should give him one more chance, give Derek Carr this year, and then, go from there and go next year and see, what lies when Derek Carr is a free agent. Maybe give Bisaccia like 1 year.
All right, and I got to give a shout out to Jason Getz here because Jason's comment here, for those that are watching this here, Brad's rocking that suit. Yeah, I didn't realize Brad even had a suit. I mean, Brad never struck me as a suit guy, but then again, what do I know?
It's a suit. It's a certain top.
Compared to all of us, and we don't wear shirts. Listen, the Brute Force, I'm like a Jimmy Buffett type. You'll never see me.
You're lucky I got sweatpants on right now. This is like,
listen, all I gotta say to Jason is, I'm pretty sure a suit would require a jacket and some other things. So
you don't have that on the chair, though. That could.
No, I don't. So I want to make that clear to Jason.
Drape it over the shoulder.
All right. Let me just one thing. Just Jason, you know what? Just you're getting that Clark East Meadow education. All right. You need to pay attention in class. That's all I need.
I'm speaking with Jason though, and I actually want to throw it out there because Jason and I was speaking on Instagram, and maybe Jason should join the stream here one day. What do you think?
Please don't approve that. All right. Please don't approve that. All right.
I'm the station manager, buddy.
This kid will come on here and give you guys a bunch of nonsense. All right. So listen.
He might give us ratings though. Like I said before on last week's show, if it's good for business, it's good for us. I mean, what's best for business? I mean,
there you go.
I mean, listen, whatever's best for business, I go with. But I don't know if I can deal with that guy. He's crazy in real life, and he'll be crazy on this show. So.
Well, as the old expression would be, we're all crazy in some way or another. So at the end of the day, in politics, they used to use a line, there are certain levels of crazy. So I'm going to say, Jason, I'll plead the fifth on that, but I do want to work in a few comments. And John Gonzalez says the brute force is victory outfit. That's what he's saying. That's your outfit here. And Anthony Frankel is watching, and he gave me a comment about a Dominican restaurant he just had on Flatbush Avenue. So shout out to that. Although I have to say, Anthony, the last time I was on Flatbush Avenue, I certainly didn't go for Dominican food, but if you recommend it, I'll certainly give it a shout next time I'm on Flatbush Avenue there right before Marine Park. And John also chimes in here and says, it looks like the Giants will hire Dable for another search in 2 years. Look for, he's not the answer. Yeah, I mean, look, the Giants have had poor luck with coaches, so stay tuned for that. And obviously here, that leads me then going into the playoffs because we've got 4 games left. We're now here in the Elite 8 for those college basketball fans here. We're in the Elite 8 at this point. And the first game I want to go into here is the Cincinnati Bengals and the Tennessee Titans. Kind of an unlikely matchup here, considering these two teams in their season, their franchises. And Titans here are 3.5-point favorites. I think 47.5 is the line right now, if I'm not mistaken. Last I saw was 47.5 is the over-under. So 4:30 p.m. matchup here. Titans, again, maybe one of the more unlikely top seeds in a long time here. And the Bengals, again, won a game that certainly a lot of fans, and John Gonzalez is still saying they didn't win that game, but they are winners, and they are here back in the second round, in the divisional round for the first time since 1990. So that means pretty much almost all of us here are seeing the Bengals in a new era. And I'm going to start out with Billy McInerney here. Bengals and Titans. Titans are 3.5-point favorites here, 4:30 kickoff. And give me your thoughts here and what we can expect.
Yeah, Tom, I don't have the screen with the upset alert buzzer like Brad does, but I'm going to get an upset in this one. I think the Bengals win this one. I know the Titans are getting Henry back, but who knows what kind of shape he's in coming off this layoff. And there's just something about Joe Burrow that makes you believe. I was the Athletic had a piece where they were kind of breaking down some stats. The only quarterback in the league to match Burrow's combination of accuracy and aggressiveness was Aaron Rodgers. And Burrow did it without Devontae Adams, who averaged like 2 more yards separation than any receiver on the Bengals. So something about Burrow, I think he got the magic. I think the Bengals win this game. I think they pull off the upset and they go on to the conference championship game.
Let me ask you a question, though. Is it really that much of an upset? Because when you think about the Titans and the Bengals, and nobody really seems to be impressed with the Titans, despite them being the top seed and despite what they've done without Derrick Henry and a quarterback that hasn't been quite elite. I mean, I'll ask the guys here their thoughts here, but is it really that much of an upset, Billy, you think?
I don't think it's a huge upset. I don't think it's, Jacksonville beating Indianapolis week 18. Upset, but I do think that the Titans, especially at home, are the slight favorites in this game.
Yeah.
I think that they have still have a better team than the Bengals, especially on defense. But I just think Burrow pulls something out, and they end up winning this game.
And John Gonzalez has got the Titans here, and he's trying to get back in the good graces of the brute force here because he says after last week's results, he says Vegas should hire the brute force's head coach and Patrick Trotty as GM. So clearly somebody's trying to get back in the good graces here of the brute force. And John,
so I got to take the GM job. I don't even get to pick my coach.
Well, that's according to John Gonzalez. I mean, that's what he's saying. I mean, and John also says he likes the Titans because he thinks that Derrick Henry will be on fresh legs, and that will be enough for the Titans to get by. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, Chris, Bengals and Titans, again, kind of an unlikely matchup here. Titans are 3.5-point favorites. 47.5 is the over/under. What do you think happens here tomorrow?
You know what? I like Tennessee because now they're healthy. They even got, now you're talking, they got Julio Jones back. AJ Brown is healthy. And now you're getting Derrick Henry back. They've been there before. Not that they've been to the Super Bowl, but they've been in the playoffs. They know how to win. They know last year they got knocked out early by Baltimore. So I think they got something going for themselves too. They had the week off. The head coach, you gotta pick Vrabel without a doubt in this situation as well. I think Burrow right now. I've said it the past couple of weeks. That guy's going to be a Super Bowl champion by the end of his career, without a doubt. He's going to be holding a trophy. I just don't think it's going to be this year. I think Tennessee with the week off. I think that's going to be a little bit too much for Cincinnati. Not that it's going to be too much for Burrow. The whole atmosphere, the whole game. But I think the rest of the team, they're not Burrow, right? So I personally like Tennessee. I like them winning and covering, like by a touchdown or maybe even more, but I'll even go by a touchdown. And listen, John, I just want to tell you something. Listen to us before you put your picks in. That's what I told you. Who had Dallas last week? Nobody had Dallas last week.
Yeah, I have to say, even I didn't pick Dallas.
Right.
Even I didn't pick me.
Come on, John, just listen to us. You're in good hands with us. Trust us. You're in good hands with us.
Do you have Allstate insurance? Because there's not.
You're in good hands with us. Don't worry about it. We're doing the research on the games all week. We're thinking about them, so we got you. Don't worry about it.
And I also got to go with the Tennessee Titans and a cheap plug here because one of our hosts for one of our shows here, the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, Chris Belcher, is a huge Tennessee Titans fan. And obviously his father, Billy Belcher, is a huge supporter of ours. He's always checking out our stuff. He's always commenting everywhere. And he is obviously a big part of the station. And Chris is a huge Titans fan. I was talking with Chris on the air, and I promised him I would say I would be picking the Titans. And I also am picking them because they have a great head coach. And I think their coach gets not a lot of credit. And I think he should get a lot more recognition here, but we'll see what the rest of the guys here think. I have a feeling it's going to be a very split verdict here, quote unquote, figuring off the brute force's outfit here. But Patrick, for you, Bengals Titans. Titans are pretty much the obligatory home favorites here, 3.5-point favorites. 47.5 is the over/under. Who do you think comes away with a W?
I'm going to agree with Billy. I think that there's something about Joe Burrow. Look, I get the reasons why Tennessee should win this game. They're at home. They're being looked over by everybody, being doubted. It's us versus the world, that type of thing. Vrabel's a great head coach, and their defense is pretty solid. Their defensive line gets after the quarterback, and Burrow gets sacked a lot. With all that being said, I'm going with Joe Burrow. I think they have the most 50-yard touchdowns of 50 yards or more in the NFL. I think Chase has 5 of them. So my theory is Joe Burrow doesn't need as much time. He can get rid of the ball quicker and have them get some yards after the catch. I like their tight end. I like all their receivers. But going back to, I think it's Burrow. I think there's going to be a drive at the end of the game. And I think Chris said this. He asked me when we were talking off the air about quarterbacks. Who do you trust to make an 80-yard drive at the end of the game? And I know it's more than just the quarterback and King Henry and whatnot, but there's something about Burrow compared to Tannehill that I just think they sneak it out late. So I'll pick the Bengals to win 28-21.
Wow.
Let me ask you a follow-up question. Could this potentially be Joe Burrow's coming out party on the national stage?
Yes. Yeah. If it goes by my script, I think yes. We'll see if it does. I could see Tennessee either running away with this game or Cincinnati winning it on a late Joe Burrow drive to Chase.
Funny you said that because I was speaking with Chris Belcher off the air, and we had talked about early in the game was going to be so key here because if Cincinnati gets a lead here, you kind of feel like that they're going to control the tempo. But if Tennessee gets off to a strong start with their defense and home field, that might be enough to maybe run away with the game and carry them enough here. But I want to get to Blue Force before I get to Justin because obviously he sort of picked the Cincinnati Bengals for the same reasons I'm picking the Tennessee Titans because last week, of course, Billy Heenan you picked because he is obviously missed the Cincinnati Bengal, and it was all the talk of social media that this guy was such a Bengals fan that he was in his shorts and T-shirt outside like 25 degrees on Long Island last weekend, and he had a wine in his hand, champagne, cigar, and he was all like this guy thought he was like in the Bahamas. I mean, but obviously, I'm going to assume then that the Brute Force Brad Weiss could be picking.
Oh boy, here we go.
And then we go. Listen, and you were assuming. That's why. Listen, I didn't even have to go any further. So tell us why the Brute Force Brad Weiss and you are picking the Cincinnati Bengals over the Tennessee Titans.
Well, I'm going to say it again because it was good luck for Billy Heenan. Billy Heenan, this is for you. I said it last week. I'm going to say it again because it worked, and I think it's going to work once again. And I think Billy and Patrick hit it on the head. I think they were tremendous in what they said and why the Cincinnati Bengals are going to win this game. I just want to make this clear, by the way, fellas, because I looked some of these stats up. You guys know where the Tennessee Titans rank against wide receivers this season in passing yards? They rank 31st in the league. They are bad against any receivers. Receivers have been killing them all season long, and I think the hottest wide receiver in the NFL is playing in this game, and that's Jamar Chase. And I think as well, Joe Burrow, I mean, he's got some weapons all over the place. He's got, Tyler Boyd. He's got, obviously, the rest of the guys. I mean, he's got weapons all over the place. I don't even have to go through them. So we all know this. And listen, it's one of those things here where he's going to make that play. I agree with Patrick. I think it's going to come late in the game, and I think which quarterback do you trust? And I think it's going to definitely be Joe Burrow. I think he's going to make some key plays. I actually think, Tom, that I think the one reason why I'm really confident in Cincinnati is because I see them scoring like 30 to 40 points in this game. I think they're going to put up numbers. I think that it's going to be who's going to score more, and I think ultimately I'm taking Cincinnati in that bet. And listen, Derrick Henry's back. Yeah, he'll probably have a good game. But ultimately, the Cincinnati Bengals defense is actually something I want to speak about because they've been playing pretty well as well. So I like Cincinnati in a lot of different reasons. And listen, one thing I'll say for Billy Heenan to make you happy, the Bengals all time are 0-7 on the road in the playoffs. This will be win number 1.
Wow, I didn't know that the Cincinnati Bengals in their entire history have never won a road playoff game because they've been to a couple Super Bowls. It was a franchise that had some success in the postseason in the past. I didn't even realize that stat. So that's an interesting stat there. Could the Bengals make history and win their first road playoff game? I mean, that's a long history there, again, with a couple Super Bowl appearances. So that's an interesting stat here. All right, nice job there, the Brute Force. Justin, Bengals, Titans 3.5-point favorites here. I mean, give me your thoughts because I almost think in a sense you're going to pretty much decide who the majority rules with when it comes to this matchup.
Well, congratulations to the Bengals. They got their first playoff win in 31 years. It's definitely a new era in Cincinnati, and Joe Burrow is certainly the future of the franchise. And they got it right. They got a guy who is a franchise changer, a guy who is a difference maker. and he's been terrific in his first full year coming off the ACL injury a year ago. However, they're running into a beast. Derrick Henry is returning, and I think on both sides of the ball, Tennessee has the advantage, whether it's Tennessee's offensive line against Cincinnati's defensive line or vice versa, Cincinnati's offensive line versus Tennessee's defensive line. And I want to speak about the importance of the absence of Larry Ogunjobi, who is now out for the season after getting hurt last week against Vegas. That's not good for the Bengals in terms of controlling the ball up, controlling the gaps up the middle. And that should give Derrick Henry, or, if Henry's getting a rest, whether it's Dontrell Hilliard or Deontay Foreman, the Titans are going to be able to run the ball in this game. They're going to run the ball pretty successfully. Josh Jacobs was able to break off some nice runs on Saturday, and I think that facing Derrick Henry is a whole different animal. And I think the Titans are going to be able to control the game, on the ground and not ask Tannehill to do all that much. So I will say, though, Vegas has given me the nice hook because I'll take the Bengals to cover, but I like the Titans to win.
Okay.
You got the 3.5 point spread. You're giving me the nice hook to take the Bengals in a field goal game.
All right, I like that. That's a pretty good way and to put it. And John Gonzalez actually says now he's switching to the Bengals because he has to go with the brute. He has to go with the brute force. So clearly somebody is smarting off there.
I'm here to help. I'm not here to hurt people. I'm here to help people. Remember that.
Wow. Okay. So clearly John is chimed in here and he's going with the Bengals, screw the Titans. And we are talking all things related here to the world of the NFL playoffs and much more with 5 of my guys here on Sportswire Radio. That is Billy McInerney, of course, formerly of Elite Sports, Chris Bizzea of the Liftoff Jet Show and the Talking Rivals, Patrick Trotty, esteemed author, also the Talking Rivals, Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show, and the brute force Brad Weiss, the legendary SJC Golden Eagle, also head coach for our Plainview JFK Hawks JV boys team, and I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. And if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, do give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great shows like the Liftoff Jets, like the Talking Rivals, like the Baseball Banter Show on sportinarium.com/player. So very simple, sportinarium.com/player. And we'll be back also Monday night here, 7 p.m. Eastern time, because we'll be speaking with pro wrestler Franco Varga, who's going to be doing a 20-date tour in the UK, and he's going to be wrestling on Fight TV February the 13th for a part of the biggest date ever against Big T. It'll be on Fight TV. You can catch it on Fight. And also Franco will be wrestling tomorrow night against former WWE star and 2-time world heavyweight champion of Impact Wrestling, Mr. EC3. So that is going to be a huge deal to have Franco Varga on, because Franco in his own right has been dominating across the world. He is a world champion in multiple promotions as we speak. So I am looking forward to speaking with him, certainly coming up here this Monday. Tuesday, we'll also be here with the natural born fighter, RP Davis, boxing champion turned wrestler, as he gets ready to return to the ring January the 29th with Odyssey Pro Wrestling. And also Helena Razor will also be with us here Tuesday. That'll be 3 p.m. Eastern time and 4 p.m. Eastern time. So hang on for that. It'll be on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and sportinarium.com/player. And we are talking all things related here to the world of professional sports and more with my guys here from Sportswire Radio. And John Gonzalez has another comment in here and says he has learned his lesson. He's not messing with the brute force anymore. So clearly, John Gonzalez is just picking what the brute force picks. So clearly, at some point, it's almost like the brute force has like a mini me now, somebody that's cloned to pick who he likes. So clearly, John is definitely maybe lost a step or two on that, and I'm sure John will have to address that. And that gets me to the next game here, Saturday night, and that is the 8:15 kickoff and an intriguing matchup. This might be the most intriguing game to me, and that is the 49ers and Packers. Packers are 5.5-point favorites here. They're actually the largest favorites here of the 4 games here, and the Packers, obviously top team in the league this year. But the 49ers, although they tried as hard as they could to lose that game against the Dallas Cowboys, they did find a way here these last 2 weeks that they played to win miraculous games that they probably weren't counted on to win in some instances, especially that Dallas game, as they gave Dallas so many chances here. But we'll see what San Francisco can do here in the cold. And I'm going to go with Billy first here. And give me your thoughts here as Green Bay's 5.5-point favorites over San Francisco, 8:15 p.m. tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm gonna say San Francisco covers, but I don't think there's a chance in hell they actually win this game. They were realistically a Dak Prescott brain fart away from almost blowing that game to the Cowboys last week. Now they have to go up to Lambeau to play against the Packers in the freezing cold. And the 49ers actually, their offensive game plan is the way you need to beat the Packers. Run the ball out, keep that in Aaron Rodgers' hands. But you still need a quarterback that can make the plays you need to win, and they don't have that with Jimmy Garoppolo, and I don't think Trey Lance is that guy yet. I think they keep it close, but I don't trust the offense to make enough plays to overcome Aaron Rodgers. So I'm taking the Packers by probably 3 or 4, and it might be a late drive by Rodgers to win it, but I don't see the 49ers winning this game at all.
But you don't believe in Jimmy G after the past couple of weeks? You don't have any belief in that team because they've won 2 big games in a row. They beat 2 division champions.
They did, yeah, but I don't like him against Green Bay's defense. I mean, San Francisco, we've seen the stats. They're great when he turns the ball over. When he turns the ball over, they can't win. And I don't see him getting through this game in that weather without turning the ball over.
Well, certainly the weather, I am sure, will be a factor there because it's not going to be 55 and sunny like it probably is in San Francisco right now. I'm sure it'll be even colder than it is here in New York. So, obviously, that cues me into the Brute Force Brad Weiss because John Gonzalez has said he's going with the Packers, but he wants to see what the Brute Force says. I mean, boy, Don, what a cowardly position.
Keep the siren off here. That's all.
This is great, by the way.
I'm disappointed with John Gonzalez because this is a cowardly take here because he's going with the Packers, but then he's going to change his mind if the Brute Force goes to the 49ers. I mean, John, come on, man. You're killing us here. You can pick somebody here. But the Brute Force, it cues you in here. Packers, 49ers, 8:15 p.m. game. 47 right now is the line. What's your thoughts on who comes our way with the W?
Yeah, so I'll start with saying basically, John Gonzalez, go with what you think. All right, I always say that. Go with what you think. All right? But listen, you're a smart man if you're going with what I think. And in this case, we do agree. All right, I am picking the Green Bay Packers to win this game. And I think Billy McInerney was just getting on it, and I'm going to exemplify it right now. Okay? Does anybody know the coldest game that Jimmy G has played in? It's 40 degrees. All right, that's the coldest game he's ever played in. The Green Bay forecast is -7 for Sunday. Negative. So you think that he's going to be ready for that weather? Hell no, he's not going to be ready. All right, he's never played in that environment. Aaron Rodgers has lived in that environment for many, many years. And I know everybody's going to say, oh, well, San Francisco owns Green Bay, 0-3 record, Rodgers against the 49ers. Oh, they know him so well. Well, guess what? You know what they don't know? That their team's a lot better and they're playing elite football right now. And I think that the Green Bay Packers are going to win this game. Not only are they going to win this game, they're going to win this game by at least 2 touchdowns. I think Devontae Adams is going to have a big day. I think their running game is going to have a big day. And I think Aaron Rodgers is as motivated as ever to get to the Super Bowl. And I think this is just the next step towards it.
All right. I mean, listen, those are valid points here. I mean, again, I still think the 49ers have a chance despite some of those odds because they do have momentum, and sometimes momentum can carry you. And again, Green Bay at home the past 20 years has been a lot left to be desired, but that's my take here. I'm going with Justin here. 49ers, Packers, 5.5-point favorites. The Packers are 47 is the over-under right now. Give me your thoughts.
Well, there's one key important word in this game that factors in. Health. The 49ers suffered a lot of injuries last week. Now it does look like that Fred Warner and Joey Bosa are trending towards playing this game on Saturday, but there is a long injury list for the San Francisco 49ers. Meanwhile, Zadarius Smith, Whitney Merciless, Randall Cobb, Josh Myers, Jair Alexander. You know what those players all have in common for the Green Bay Packers? They're all activated off IR. These are all key contributors, when healthy for the Green Bay Packers. And the Packers are as healthy as they could be. And Aaron Rodgers is on an absolute mission, and he wants nothing more than to destroy the 49ers. Because let's put it this way. He's a guy that holds grudges. We know that. Who didn't draft him first overall back in 2005? The 49ers. And he would love nothing more than to stick it to the 49ers and ensure that the NFC Championship game will be played at Lambeau Field next Sunday. So I love the Packers, and I love the Packers in a big way this game. I just can't see San Francisco keeping this close. I just really can't, because they don't have nobody's got an answer in the secondary for Devontae Adams. The emergence of A.J. Dillon in the second half of the season has really given a nice 1-2 punch for the Green Bay running game. And again, getting Cobb back adds another player that they have to cover, as well as Lazard and Valdez-Scantling, that forces one-on-one coverage on Devontae Adams. And
I think Scantling's out though. Some with his back, I heard.
Well, Cobb is definitely
Cobb is in, but I think Scantling's out.
Cobb is in. Scantling.
Cobb is definitely
he's doubtful, so he's less than likely. Yeah. But still, the Packers have plenty of weapons on offense, and let's be honest. This Green Bay defense is better than it has been in years past. So, I don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo in this spot. So, give me Green Bay. Probably, I like somewhere between like 27-14 or something like that.
Yeah, I could see you going that way. And again, the Brute Force and Justin agree, which we don't get too often when it comes to games as well. So that's a little side note. And John kind of, I guess, contradicts himself and says that the only issue he has is that Rodgers is 0-3 against the 49ers in the playoffs, but he's got the Brute Force's approval.
John, were you listening? Were you listening, John? I just said that.
No, he says his last line, though, is he says, but the Brute Force is going with the Packers, so I'm going with the Packers. So, again, you didn't let me read the whole thing off. That's what his point is. So that's his thoughts here. But, Chris, 49ers, Packers. Packers are 5.5-point favorites here. 47 is the over-under. 8:15 p.m. game on Fox. Who do you think wins?
Yeah, I'm going to just agree with what the guys have just said with Brute Force and Justin. I think Green Bay is going to win big. I do not see Jimmy G doing anything good in this kind of weather whatsoever. Yes, they could run the ball, and they're going to be able to move the ball on the ground. But listen, when he has to make a play, there's no way he's going to be able to make it. He has not been able to. He's never played in 0-degree weather, and some of these other guys probably haven't either. We're talking about their best players, Samuel. He probably's never played in this kind of weather too. He came from Alabama. So he probably never played, anything below 50 degrees. So, I think Green Bay is going to win big. They're going to be hosting the championship game next week. And I think I think Justin said it, Aaron Rodgers is definitely on a mission. He wants to get that second Super Bowl championship. He's only got one, and all the other great quarterbacks, they all have at least two. And even in, when you look at the Packers, Bart Starr's got two, Favre's got two. And Rodgers has one. I'm sorry, he's got one. So he definitely wants to best him before he leaves, because I'm telling you right now, he's gone after this year, because they didn't draft Jordan Love for nothing, right, in the first round. If they got him in the third round, I would have been like, yeah, maybe they'll keep Rodgers. But Rodgers wants an extension wherever he goes. So I don't see him staying there. So this is almost like his farewell tour for Green Bay, So I could definitely see him, like Justin said, he's on a mission. I could see him maybe rumming it in a little bit to San Fran. I could see them winning by easily 2 touchdowns, maybe even more. It might get ugly, that game.
You know what? I do think there's a point that you made there where, listen, Favre 1-1, Russell Wilson 1-1. technically Sims won one as a starting quarterback, and Rodgers wants to be in that Elway, Manning, Montana, Roethlisberger, all those other quarterbacks that have won multiple Super Bowls all time.
Both
Staubach's
Mannings
another
won 2
example.
Super Bowls.
Right. Well,
Right.
I mean, one I think you put in the stratosphere. Another
Wow.
one you put.
One's in the
He's
penthouse, the
probably
other
on-
one's on the
Look,
ground floor.
that's
at
a
the
discussion I'm sure we'll have another time when he's on the ballot, and we'll get to the
Yes.
Baseball Hall of Fame in a little while. But the point is that you're right, Chris. Rodgers wants to put himself into the stratosphere, and he needs another Super Bowl for him to catapult into that. So obviously, I could certainly see why you're going with Green Bay. And Patrick, that leads me to you then. 49ers, Packers, 47 is the over-under, 5.5-point favorite to Green Bay. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said by everyone. You know who doesn't trust Jimmy G besides us is the front office at San Francisco, because they drafted Trey Lance.
Right.
I mean, if they thought Jimmy G was going to be healthy and not interception prone and playing in cold weather and traveling well, they wouldn't have drafted Trey Lance as high as they did. I think that regardless of Rodgers' motivation and what he wants to do, he's too talented not to win this game. I think if you put it in his hands against if it's him in a shootout against Garoppolo, who's making play for play, I'm just going with Rodgers here. They'll win by 10 to 14. My only question is the over-under. Really, 47 seems about in the neighborhood. So maybe Debo scores a touchdown late to get them closer and push it in the over. But I could see like a 28-17 game, 31-17 maybe.
And I have some breaking news here from the Crack staff, and thank you to the Crack staff for giving this to me. And it's unfortunately not NFL related, but it's too important not to bring up here. And that is the New York Islanders have reported that Clark Gillies, obviously the legendary New York Islander forward, of course, member of the 4 Stanley Cups between 1980 and 1983, arguably, I would say him and Bobby Nystrom are the 2 biggest ambassadors to the New York Islanders history, has passed away here at the age of 67. So this is definitely something that I'm sure most people did not expect. In fact, I even got an alert on Newsday from this just now. So unfortunately, this literally just broke here. So obviously, some of us here are hockey fans, but most importantly, if you're a sports fan, this is a tremendous loss, and especially for the New York Islanders organization here. And obviously, again, Gillies played with the Islanders from 1974 to 86. He was drafted in the first round, 4th overall in the 1974 NHL draft, and played 872 games for the Islanders, 5th all-time in franchise history, 304 goals, which is 4th all-time in team history, 359 assists, 5th in franchise history, and 663 points, which is 4th in team history, but most importantly, played in 159 playoff games for the Islanders, 47 goals, and was one of 17 Islanders that played in 4 straight Stanley Cup teams, and also was a member of the team that went to the 1984 Stanley Cup, 19 straight playoff series. Again, that is a mark that I don't think is going to be broken in sports, but it is unfortunately very sad news to report here. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame also here in 2002, and I just want to read a statement from General Manager Lou Lamoriello, and he says here that Clark Gillies, he emphasized what it means to be a New York Islander. The pride he felt wearing the Islanders sweater on the ice was evident by his willingness to do anything to win. Off the ice, he was just as big of a presence, always taking the time to give back to the local community. The New York Islanders have 4 Stanley Cups because of the sacrifices he and the members of those dynasty teams made for the franchise. On behalf of the entire organization, we send our deepest condolences to the entire Gillies family. Chris, you're our Islanders guy just like me. You saw those 4 Stanley Cups. You got to give me a thought, unfortunately, on the news here that literally just broke a few minutes ago that Clark Gillies is no longer with us.
Yeah, it's sad. You know, anytime one of the great players of your organization or the team that you've been rooting for passes away, especially at an early age. I mean, he wasn't that old. What was he, 60?
67.
67. I mean, that's young.
That's too young
Um,
these days.
Yeah, it's sad. There's nothing really you could say other than the guy was a great player. Obviously helped us win 4 straight Stanley Cups, and you know, deepest condolences to his family and his loved ones. Obviously, it's definitely a sad day, and an Islander nation here. But what are you gonna do? It's just there's nothing you could really say in a situation like this.
No, no, no. Just it's I will say as a season ticket holder, I used to see Gillies all the time. You would see him all over the place. He was definitely an ambassador for the team, and it was a tough period to be a season ticket holder because the Islanders in the Barclays Center, it just was an unfortunate experiment. But he was there. I pretty much saw him almost every night. He was at the concourse. He was walking the concession stands, and he would allow you to speak with him for a few minutes, and people would take pictures with him. So, really, really tough loss. And you hate to be able to speak about something like this. Billy, I know that you're a Rangers fan, but obviously, hockey history. And again, a very, very tough time. And John Gonzalez chimes in and says that Mike Bossie has cancer also. Yeah, I heard that a few months ago. And but he didn't know about Gillies. Yeah, nobody knew about Gillies, John. Nobody saw that one coming up. Billy, you thought it too on Clark Gillies and just the life that we lost here?
Yeah, I mean, like Justin said, 67 these days is really still a little too young to go. Obviously, great player for the Islanders. Also, won the Memorial Cup with Regina Pats when he played juniors. Was the runner-up with the Canada 1981 Canada Cup, scored 7.7 games. So, played well internationally. Real good player. Complete shame that he passed away. Huge part of that Islanders dynasty. Certainly never news you want to hear. So just, obviously thoughts with his family, and, it's always sad when something like that happens.
I wouldn't say it's similar to when the Mets lost Tom Seaver last year, but when you do think about Islander history, Gillies is one of a handful of guys that you think of. You think about Nystrom, you think about Bossie, you think about Trottier, you think about certainly Butch Goring, and there's a few others. Obviously, John Tonelli, who's got recently inducted into the team's Hall of Fame. There's a number of players, and he's a part of that class. So it's definitely a very sad day for the New York Islanders fan base. And Justin, I know you're a hockey guy. I mean, just a thought or two on Clark Gillies here real quick. I know it's just very, very tough. And again, this literally just broke as we're on the air here.
Yeah, again, like I said before, 67 in this day and age is too young. It's definitely not just a loss for the Islanders family. It's a loss for the game of hockey because of, what he meant to the New York Islanders and what he meant to that dynasty in the early 1980s. And, we haven't really seen a run like that in New York sports, with the exception, the only franchise in New York sports who could really rival what the Islanders did in the 80s were the New York Yankees. And to win 4 straight championships is something that in any sport I think we'll never see again. And what he meant to the organization, as well as the other players you mentioned, he was a key major figure on the team. But and to your point, not only being a key former player, but being an ambassador, being at all the games. Islanders fans, young and old, can relate to Clark Gillies because of that, because he stayed around the franchise post-playing career, and I'm sure he attended plenty of games at UBS this year. I don't know. We don't know what his
he was shown a few times on the MSG games. Yep, he was definitely
okay.
there.
Yeah, so he was even at UBS Arena this year. So the fact that he's somebody who's still around the franchise, even as of this year, Islander fans, young and old, whether you saw him win the championships or not, have a great connection with him. And so I think organizationally, it hurts. Honestly, it really hurts.
And unfortunately, the old adage is death comes in threes, because today, famously, we had Meatloaf pass away at the age of 74. comic Louis Anderson passed away at the age of 68, and
that's
Clark
right.
Gillies. So unfortunately, death comes in threes here, and obviously, again, Clark Gillies is a tremendous loss, though, to the New York Islanders organization. I think about the shape that I used to see Gillies in. He looked like he could still move around. He looked like he was in great shape, and the fact that he's 67, and I hate to go and bring up wrestling, when I see guys like Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan, and they've stayed alive, and all the wrestlers that have been in with steroids and everything else.
Yeah, they look like in bad shape. Some of them.
Hulk Hogan's walking around with a cane right now. Ric Flair, I mean, we could go
if they make it to that age, how many wrestlers have died at an early age?
Even guys like Bret Hart, Bret Hart is 64. He looks like he's terrible. I mean, some of these wrestlers that they're in their 60s, and yet Gillies, I used to always see he and Nystrom always looked like they were in very, very good shape. So just an unfortunate thing that they took somebody away a little too young. And again, condolences to his family and every single Islanders fan. And we'll try to bring it back here and go back to our regularly scheduled programming here and go to the next two games here on the Sunday slate. And another interesting matchup here, and this is the Rams and Bucks. And again, the Bucks are 2.5-point favorites here. I believe 48 is the over-under here. And Stafford finally got the monkey off his back, I guess you could say. He finally got his first postseason victory here. It's an NBC matchup, 3:15 is kickoff. And I'm going to start with the Brute Force Brad Weiss and kind of go on the spot here because I'm sure John Gonzalez is going to try to figure out here who he can go with, but he can't do that now because the Brute Force is picking first here. So Rams, Bucks. I guess Rams looked impressive enough against the Cardinals, and obviously upset alert here. The Brute Force Brad Weiss. I mean, wow, he's going right on the spot here. So I'm not going to say anything further. Tell our audience here why you're going with the Los Angeles Rams over the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, again, your mother is a huge Tom Brady fan.
Yes, I know that, but I was educated enough to pick Tom Brady against the New York Jets earlier this season. All right. And this is not about Tom Brady. Listen, and it's very hard for me to ever pick against him, but ultimately everything's just against him right now. I mean, and Justin Gianelli was talking about injuries when it came to, the San Francisco 49ers. That really applies in this matchup. I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers across their entire offense have injuries all over the place, especially to key offensive linemen. Tristan Wirfs is a big name. Ryan Jensen is another one. These guys are banged up. And what's the strength of the Los Angeles Rams defense? Their front four. And, Von Miller, who's playing really well right now. I mean, and we could talk about everybody else. Aaron Donald, obviously. I mean, they're going to be putting pressure on Tom Brady all game long. And Tom Brady does not have his weapons on the outside to throw it to. And the one weapon that he does have is going to be guarded by Jalen Ramsey. And yes, you're saying, oh, well, don't forget about Gronk. Yeah, Gronk will be out there, but Gronk can't save the day. And the Rams, right, are going to key in on him as well. So ultimately, it's going to come down to those secondary, third receivers. And I don't think they're going to get the job done. I think Tom Brady is going to be under pressure all game long. And I think that's troublesome for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think Matthew Stafford will have a good enough game to be able to propel the Rams in this one. Their defense will hold Tampa Bay to a low number scoring, and that's why I like this formula coming together, and that being the Los Angeles Rams winning this game.
John Gonzalez actually disagrees with you, believe it or not. He says that he just can't he says he can't go against Brady. Listen, and a lot of people, I think, are going to look at this match.
He was with him the other games. Now all of a sudden he's jumping ship.
Well, that's why we wanted to put the Brute Force on the spot first. We wanted him to pick. So that way John Gonzalez can pick for himself and figure out who he thinks should win. But the Brute Force, I mean, are you sold on Matthew Stafford? I mean, a lot of people are still going to say here they can't go against Brady. I mean, Stafford still, his record versus Brady's record doesn't leave much to be desired. You still final answer?
No, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you there, Tom. I mean, do I trust Matthew Stafford over Tom Brady? Hell no, obviously not. But, again, this is not about Tom Brady. Listen, Tom Brady is going to, have to make spectacular plays. Yes, he'll make some. But ultimately, I'm telling you, these injuries add up. And there's too many of them for me to trust Tom Brady. Who's he throwing the ball to? Who's blocking for him? And if these guys do play, Wirfs and Jensen, how healthy really are they ultimately? So I think that, listen, Yeah, I hate picking against Tom Brady. He proves me wrong almost all the time. But this game's going to be out of his hands. It's going to be the best unit on the field is going to be the Rams defense in this game. And I think that they're going to impose their will. And Matthew Stafford doesn't even have to have that great of a game. He'll have a average game, and they'll still, I believe, win this game. And I think that I didn't say it before, but the Rams running game has been very impressive, especially last week. And I think that'll play a key in this game as well.
All right. I mean, listen, we'll certainly see what happens. I mean, this could be the Rams' year, and obviously the Bucs do have some injuries. And frankly, I have not been that impressed with the Bucs all year, despite Tom Brady and everything else that would say pick Tampa Bay. And certainly for you, the Brute Force, we'll see what your mother thinks when she hears this, because obviously she's a huge Tom Brady. I had to work that in there. But Billy, Rams, Bucs. Bucs are 2.5-point favorites here. To be fair, odds makers don't think that much of Tampa Bay being a strong favorite. They're the obligatory home favorite here. 48.5 is the over-under. A little after 3 is kickoff on NBC. So who do you think comes away with the W and go to the NFC Championship game?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with Brad. I'm taking the Bucs here. I know they have some injuries, but the Rams going in without Andrew Whitworth. They have Eric Weddle, who's been retired since like 2018, playing a key role in the secondary. I think the Rams can get pressure on Brady, but I think the Bucs can get as much pressure on Stafford. And this is a game that Brady dumps to his running backs like 15, 20 times, and ultimately it's a low-scoring game. But I think the Bucs put enough pressure on Stafford to get him to make a few mistakes. The Bucs get a few short fields, and I think the Buccaneers end up pulling out this win over the Rams, and they end up hosting the NFC Championship. Going to Green Bay to play in the NFC Championship game.
And we get a rematch last year. So, I mean, that would be kind of cool. Always like rematches. So, we'll certainly see if the Bucs can pull that off. And, Chris, Rams, Bucs. Bucs are, again, the obligatory home favorite here. 2.5-point favorites. 48 is the over-under. Who do you think wins here between Matthew Stafford and Tom Brady?
Well, I think I'm going to go with Brute Force on this one.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Right.
For the same reasons he said with the injuries. But the Rams do have their own injuries because Whitworth is out and their other starting safeties out as well. So, but I think this is going to be the week that Stafford has that career-defining victory. Last week he got the monkey off his back, but this is the week it's going to be like a career-defining victory because he's going to beat Tom Brady on the road. I don't think they're going to win next week against Green Bay, but I'll give them this week for sure. I just think Tampa Bay's injuries are just too much, especially on the offensive line because, listen, Brady, like you said, not only is his wide receivers are out, the offensive line, a couple of those guys are banged up. If he's not, listen, he was never a scrambler anyway. So now he's 44, and we seen it last week when those guys got hurt, Jensen and Scherf. The Eagles guys were in the backfield the whole third and fourth quarter. I mean, if the Eagles scored some points, it would have been at least a game last week. But so that's not a good thing for Tampa Bay to have the offensive line hurt. If those guys were healthy, they got a shot, a great shot. But there's just too many injuries. I think the injuries have caught up to Tampa Bay. Rams got some too, but I just think the Rams got too much going for them. I think they're going to win by at least 7. I don't think it's going to be that close, but I think by a touchdown they'll win.
Do you buy anything from when these teams squared off earlier in the year when the Rams got a victory? Is that part of your thinking in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it gives them confidence as well. Like, hey, we beat them the first time, we're going to beat them again. I think that's their mentality. If you've beaten a team already, Brute Force will tell you, being a coach, being a player, even us, as players too.
Sure.
If you beat the team before, hey, we could beat them. We've done it once, we could do it again. And now they're a wounded animal. They're banged up, right? I think when they first met, I think Godwin was playing for them. Antonio Brown was playing for them. So they were fully healthy and they beat them. So now, listen, they're banged up big time. They lost 2 or 3 of their top starting wide receivers. Their running backs are out too. Isn't Fournette is out, or is he back this week?
I don't think they've officially activated him off of IR yet, but it sounds like he's close to playing.
Oh, okay. So he might play.
They may make the move, but Ronald Jones is out.
Right. So
and Gio Bernard, I believe, is listed as questionable.
Yeah, so if Fournette's not 100, even if he comes back, he may not be 100%. So they're banged up, and like
And you don't have the depth behind him.
Their injuries have caught up to them, and I think they're going to catch up to them big time this week against the Rams.
All right, well, we'll certainly see. I mean, clearly somebody's getting text messages here about who they picked, so obviously they'll have to answer for that. It looks like it's the brute force Brad Weiss. It could be his mother right now saying, "Hey, why did you pick against Brady for
Easy on Tom Brady.
I tell you when it was Bucks Jets and you were supposed to go with Brady." So obviously, we're all kidding aside. Shout out to the brute force's mother because she actually shared our video on Facebook. So
and also too, here's a quick one. If they lose, what happens? Does Tom Brady retire?
No,
I think Tom Brady
that makes him hungrier to win next year.
You think he's coming back? Yeah.
I feel like Tom Brady is going to just keep playing until
Brady's going to retire because of injury.
Exactly. I think the same thing. I think he's going to have to be carried out of the field. Yeah.
I've seen something come up today that supposedly somebody spoke to somebody and they said he might be ready to retire, but that's why it just came to me. I was like,
well, let me throw an alternate. Let's say the Bucks win. They win in Green Bay if Green Bay wins, and they win the Super Bowl. That's kind of your Cinderella story ending there. Would you say it's more likely if Brady retires if the Bucks win another Super Bowl back-to-back?
More likely, but still not likely.
Yeah,
okay.
Anybody? I mean, Pat,
does it?
Patrick, for you, I mean, you know Brady better than anybody. You think he'd still play?
I think he still plays. Until he's in a retirement home, I'm not counting him out of playing. Seriously, I think he's gonna play for another several years. I think he plays.
You know
for
what?
a couple
I
more
kind of
years,
think he's playing.
And I think they have to drag him off the field, unfortunately, because of an injury.
That's what I think. I think he's going to be in Ricky Henderson territory for our baseball fans. Just going to keep playing and playing and playing. Julio Franco, Jamie Moyer. I mean, Jesse Orozco, those types where it's just like,
would still be pitching now.
But the only difference is Brady's still playing at an MVP level.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Which is insane.
True. No, listen, definitely a lot to be desired there. And John Gonzalez is talking about the Bills. We'll get to that. We want to hear what Patrick and Justin have to say first, John. So hang on tight there, my friend. And for you, Patrick, I mean, Rams, Bucks. I mean, I almost have to ask you. I mean, I'm expecting here, I guess, a Bucks win from your standpoint, or give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I think the Bucks still have, like 2013 Patriot vibes in them with Gronk and Brady. Run it back on one more round and win. And I'm not going to pick against Brady this early in the playoffs yet. Next week, different story with Rodgers, but I'm trying not to overthink it, and I'm just trying to go by quarterbacks here. I know both sides have injuries, and there's a lot of things, moving parts, but I think Stafford is not having a career-defining game. I'm sorry, Chris. He's not going to do it. Okay. There's no way. I see him throwing a big interception. I see him pulling a Kyler Murray for this week.
Wow.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Joe Burrow, for whatever reason, I would feel more confident in having a career-defining game, whereas Stafford, it's like I still can't shake off the Matthew Stafford that we've seen in the past in these spots. So I don't know. I
hope he proves me wrong because he's got superior arm talent. It just sometimes there's a disconnect with his game, and he just looks lost out there. And hopefully for his team, he plays well and proves me wrong, and I'll come back and I'll eat crow. But I just don't think he's going to play that well in this big game.
And before I get to Justin, John Gonzalez does have a few good points about this game that I'd like to bring up. He says that he thinks that if Bruce Arians retires, should he win the Super Bowl? Anybody want to take a bite on that? If Arians wins the Super Bowl, he would retire? Anybody want to take a bite?
I would have said that last year. I don't know about now, though.
No, I think that this is it regardless for Arians.
Let me ask you a question hypothetically, and this will kind of lead into in a little while when we get into the Hall of Fame discussion toward the end of the show. And I hate to say Bruce Arians and Canton, but if by some chance the Bucks win the Super Bowl, that's back-to-back Super Bowls, is Bruce Arians going to Canton for you guys?
Yeah, two-time winner, Super Bowl winner.
He hasn't been a head coach long enough.
That's why I asked the question.
I
No.
think he gets in. Two-time winner. How many two-time winners are not in the Hall of Fame?
Mike Shanahan at the moment would be one, correct?
And Coughlin, right?
Well, Coughlin, would he just be on the
I
ballot
thought
soon?
Coughlin went in.
No, did he really?
No.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm looking at. I'm
I don't
looking at
remember
it.
Coughlin acceptance speech. I don't.
No, I think eventually, he's not a first ballot or anything, but I think eventually gets in because what's his name eventually got in? Flores, right?
Tom
He
Flores.
should've-
Yep.
he
That was a
should've been
long
years
way.
Flores
That was a long
contributed
way.
more as
He should've
far as
got in
being
years
the
ago.
the first Mexican-born quarterback with his roots in the AFL.
And coach but he should. That's why he should have gotten even.
Yeah, no,
you
I
know,
mean, to your
20,
point.
30 years ago, he should have been in. But yeah, I think they'll get in eventually. He may not be first
No, I'm
ballot.
looking at his career record right now, and he'd have a case. At first I was kind of dismissive, but I'm looking at his career record. 49-30-1 at Arizona, led them to the playoffs twice, NFC Championship game, 9-3. That little run he had as the interim there with the Colts. And right now with Tampa, he's 31-18, and he's for his career in the postseason, he's 5-0, 6-2. He's
So he doesn't have 100
9-3.
wins.
89.
wins.
80. He's got
89.
80 in the regular season, 9. Well, actually, no, 89 unofficially, counting 2012. Postseason, he's got 6. So he's got 95 career wins, regular season and postseason.
Wasn't he the OC of the Steelers when they won the Super Bowl too?
Yeah.
Right?
No, I think he was the OC of the team that lost to Green Bay.
He was. 2007, he was promoted to offensive coordinator. Team would go on to win the Super Bowl. That's what his track record was there. Yep. So, I mean,
Something
yeah.
about the 100 career wins sounds much better for his argument.
Yeah.
I think so.
I don't know,
Super
Brad.
Bowls, to Chris's point, it's tough.
You ever thought on that, Brad? You're a coach. Does Arians get it? I kind of feel like I'm on the fence.
That's
Exactly. Another one.
That's exactly where I am. I think it's 50-50 right now. I do think, to Chris's point, if he does win this year, that would really help. But I think it would be better for him and give him a better chance if he came back next year, had success again, and had a chance at the Super Bowl again. I think that would help him. If he does retire after this season, I think we're up for a debate. I think we'll continue to nod our head left and right and wonder and kind of be like, really? It's a 50-50 thing.
Yeah, that's what I kind of think.
Maybe they both retire after this year.
Maybe. But here's the issue in regards to Arians. If you're debating whether or not he should be in the Hall of Fame, he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
That's what I've always felt.
Right now, no.
Good point.
But if he becomes a multiple Super Bowl champion,
Then
then
the
he's in that
competition's a little bit is.
Yeah.
Well, that's my
now that I look
point.
more
Well,
at stats,
and
it's a
John
little bit different
Gonzalez, I got to
conversation
give
if he wins it
John
again.
credit on this one. It's an excellent debate. Should Arians win a Super Bowl? Yeah, I guess you'd put him in then, John, because 2 Super Bowl championships and a career winning percentage unofficially in the regular season of .635 and a postseason record. Should he win a Super Bowl, would be 9-2. I mean, a 9-2 record in the postseason. I mean, that
to
would.
Justin's point, though, if you have to kind of shake your head side to side and have a talk about it, he's obviously not a first ballot Hall of Famer.
No, I don't think he's first ballot.
Is he a Hall? I mean, the way they vote, people retire and then all of a sudden they get in on the 5th or 10th ballot, and nothing's changed with the guy's career. So they do.
And I got to read off a comment here before we get to Justin, because this is this might be my favorite comment so far of the evening. I want to give a shout out to this person because it'll be somebody the Brew Force knows, because it'll be somebody probably in the Brew Force's house. And that is obviously a shout out here to the Gentle Force, of course, Mrs. Weiss, because she says here, never go against the GOAT. Yeah, that's what I kind of think here at this point, unfortunately. How can I go against Tom Brady? So, I mean, that was kind of obvious here. That was right for you, Brad. I was kind of throwing that out there for you. But I guess maybe you'll plead the fifth on that one and just say no comment.
Yeah, I think it's better, especially since it's my own mother, to probably keep my mouth shut. I'll probably just get myself in more trouble. I said enough already.
Trust me, the Brufors, you could not be in as much trouble as I was today, butchering a whole town's pronunciation. So you don't want to have that kind of heat. I mean, I'm still trying to figure that one out. We got to mention that town's name like 100 more times between now and next week. So at the end of the day, you made the smart move. Justin, I turn it over to you before we go to the other matchup here for Sunday. Rams-Bucks, after everything we've said, who do you think wins?
Well, let's put it this way. We haven't had a repeat champion since the 03-04 New England Patriots.
That is true.
And I'm pretty confident in saying that we will be seeing a new Super Bowl champion this season. And that Super Bowl champion will see their season come to an end this week. I do think the Los Angeles Rams overall are the better team. Now, obviously, you get a big check mark in your column when you got Tom Brady as your quarterback. But to Brad, we'll go all the way back to what Brad mentioned about the offensive line issues of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Even if Ryan Jensen and Tristan Wirfs are out there, how healthy are they? They're going to get pushed around by Von Miller, by Aaron Donald. The front four is the strength of the Rams. Plus, you have a solid secondary led by Jalen Ramsey. And, late in the season, aside from last week, and they came alive last week, Tampa's run defense had started to become an issue of late. And one of the things that the Rams have done in their success, towards the end of the season was they were starting to run the ball extremely well. And now with Darrell Henderson being activated off IR and potentially available to play in this game, you're looking at a three-headed monster of Sonny Michel, Cam Akers, and Darrell Henderson. And what are the two best ways to keep Tom Brady from doing his thing? It's a great run game and a great pass rush. I mean, I think we all saw 11 years ago the New York Jets put the blueprint on the map on how to beat Tom Brady. And I think the Rams are well equipped to do it. And I agree with Patrick that it won't be a career-defining game for Matthew Stafford, but I also don't think it's going to need to be. I think this is going to end up being a game where it's not about the quarterbacks. It's going to be about whose defense can hold up and whose defense is going to make the plays. And I think LA's defense is going to make the plays and force Brady into bad situations. And if they're forcing them into third and longs, yeah, they have Gronk as a safety net, but now you could focus all your attention on Mike Evans on the outside, and they're just not, and I just don't know how much they can get away with 2 and 3 tight end sets in the passing game against this Ram defense, because their only way to really either get extra run blockers or, pass with the lack of wide receiver depth is to run the 2-3 tight end set where you have OJ Howard and Cameron Brate out there as well as Rob Gronkowski. And those two guys don't really strike a fear in anybody. So, I don't think Brady's working with enough this year. And I think the Rams they're just a better football team.
Well, it very well could be, again, and it's a Rams team that you almost feel like it's Super Bowl or bust. So for them, there might be a lot more to play for. And that's a great stat, Justin, you'd mentioned, in the fact that we haven't seen a repeat Super Bowl winner since those 03 Patriots and 04 Patriots. So we've seen a few teams try and come up short.
And one other quick point is
Sure.
with the uncertainty of Sean Murphy Bunting, the top cornerback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who's going to be tasked with covering Cooper Kupp, and that's not to mention how well Odell Beckham has played over the last few weeks, and he had a really solid game against the Cardinals on Monday night, and he's starting to find his groove in the LA offense, and again, we've talked about Cooper Kupp as a dark horse MVP candidate. Obviously, he won't win it. Best receiver in the NFL this year in terms of the numbers. I just think the Rams are a better football team.
They very well might be. So clearly, again, I mean, a lot there to desire. Clearly, again, I think it's going to be a great game, and that's, again, 3 o'clock, 3:05 to be exact on NBC, although you never know at these games. It could be 3:10 or 3:12, or whatever it will be. So that is kickoff time here. And that leaves us to the last game of the weekend, and it's the Chiefs and the Bills, and 6:30 p.m. CBS, and it's a matchup we saw earlier in the year, and boy, did we see Buffalo lay a thumping on Kansas City earlier in the year, and it was 38-20, and that was kind of when we were starting to have some question marks about the Kansas City Chiefs, and yet the Chiefs are here in their familiar spot, and the Bills had their own issues, but they're also now in a familiar spot here over the past few years, and the Chiefs are only a 2-point favorite. So that essentially means that Vegas is taking a lot of stock in what we saw earlier in the year here, and the over-under here is 54. So I think Vegas is counting on this to be the game here where we're going to see a lot of points of these 4 matchups. So I'm going to go straight into it because I want to see what John Gonzalez thinks. I want John Gonzalez to think for his own here. I know he kind of said the Bills, but let's see what the brute force Brad Weiss has to say here. And the Buffalo Bills, who are back here against the Kansas City Chiefs. It is a rematch of last year in the AFC Championship game. It is a rematch from earlier in the year, and it's Allen Mahomes, and obviously a lot to be desired. So obviously the brute force, I know a lot of people are going to be very curious about this, especially on Instagram and everywhere else for the Sunday night game, the last game of the weekend, Chiefs Bills. Who's going to the AFC Championship game?
There we go.
Wow.
The siren has been active tonight, and it's going to be active once again. And listen, this was a very difficult decision. I've been going back and forth, but ultimately, I heard Patrick Trotty talk about it last week when he had that very difficult decision whether the Patriots or Bills were going to win. And he said, his favorite quarterback is Josh Allen. And Josh Allen played really damn good football last week against that Patriots defense. And I think that Josh Allen coming off that loss last year in the playoffs to the Kansas City Chiefs is going to be the most motivated player on the field this weekend. And I think that he is going to come out this game and have a huge game. I think he's going to have a big game for the Buffalo Bills. I think the Buffalo Bills offensively are going to have a good game against the Kansas City defense that, yes, has been a lot better since they last saw them. Like you said, Tom, thumped them earlier in the year. The Kansas City Chiefs have been better defensively, but they haven't been better to the point where I feel that they played a team that's as hot and is playing as well as these Buffalo Bills right now. And I think that that's going to hit them hard. They're not going to be expecting it as much, even though, they'll be prepared. But they're not going to be expecting how well these Buffalo Bills are going to come out, how Josh Allen is going to use his legs and his arm to beat them. And I think that's going to be a huge problem for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think the Chiefs, one thing, and listen, obviously I had my fun last week seeing them put almost 50 on the Pittsburgh Steelers, just like I said they would. But ultimately, we all saw how they started the game against Pittsburgh. Not very good. And I don't think they're going to be able to get away with that this week. This is not – the Buffalo Bills defense has been great. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense has not been as of recent. So I think that this Buffalo Bills defense, if they get off to a slow start again, I don't think they're going to be able to get away with it. And ultimately, I think this Bills defense is going to hold up. I think Josh Allen is going to go for a big day, and I think this is going to be his game where he's going to say, I am the new guy to look at in the AFC as one of the best quarterbacks, and the guy who's going to be coming out and competing with Patrick Mahomes every year.
I'll tell you what, after watching him last week in 7 drives, 7 touchdowns, certainly Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills might be peaking here at the right time, so we'll see. I mean, the Chiefs in their own right looked pretty good, although, again, have to tamper expectations.
It was against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's cool our pits.
I said tamper expectations. I did say, to be fair, I said, listen, it was the Steelers, but obviously that's your pick, and we'll see what the rest of the guys think here. Billy, Chiefs, Bills, again, Chiefs very slight favorites here, almost not even an obligatory home favorite here. I think Vegas is clearly looking at how the Bills played last week and how these teams squared off earlier in the year. Give me your thoughts here on who do you think comes away with the W here Sunday night.
The Bills looked great last week. They marched down here on the Patriots. You beat down a rookie who looked at his own breath like it was graduate level calculus. Awesome win. And I'm not the Chiefs. Like I get it, they beat up on the ghost of Ben Roethlisberger. They put 50 on a pretty bad team that shouldn't have been in the playoffs. I'm taking the Chiefs in this one. Yeah, I know the Bills are kind of the trendy upset pick. They're trying to like the Kardashians. It needs to end. It needs to end soon.
I don't mind looking at Kim Kardashian.
But yeah, look, the only quarterback who's ever beaten Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs is Tom Brady. The only time he's done it at Arrowhead, he needed overtime to do it. If this game was being played in Buffalo, I'd be leaning the Bills. But with this game being in Kansas City, I think it's a last session game. I think the Chiefs end up with that like last 20 seconds left touchdown or even a field goal, whatever. I think the Chiefs end up winning this game. It's going to be a shootout. I don't care what the number is. I'm going over, but I think the Chiefs end up winning this thing.
Yeah, something tells me this is the one game that I'm like confident is going to be over 50. At least.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be, I don't know, like 35-24 or like 38-27.
I think they both break 30.
Yeah, I think this is the one game I'm saying, you know what, put all your stuff down, make sure you watch because these two teams are going to definitely score some points, especially after both teams' performances last week on Wild Card Weekend. And Justin, I'm going to go around the room here. I mean, Chiefs, Bills. I'm really curious here what you have to say on this matchup for whatever reason, because I feel like you're going to have definitely.
Well, let's put it this way.
God.
Yeah, well, let's put it this way. There's only been one quarterback to knock off Patrick Mahomes in the postseason. That's Tom Brady. Whether it's the 2019 AFC title game or it's the Super Bowl last year, Josh Allen. Met him in the AFC Championship game last year. Bills didn't get the job done. The Chiefs got back to the Super Bowl. Josh Allen is a great young, rising quarterback, rising to stardom. And you could certainly put him close, if not almost in that category with Rodgers, Mahomes, and Brady as a top quarterback in the NFL. However, Josh Allen, it's not your time. Until proven otherwise, I cannot pick against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the postseason. Until proven otherwise, because right now the Chiefs are firing on all cylinders, just like Buffalo. Both teams coming off strong performances last week, but the Chiefs were more consistent down the stretch, and their defense is going to make Josh Allen one-dimensional. And I think that Buffalo is going to revert back to their late November, early December rut where they relied all on Josh Allen. They're going to end up ignoring Devin Singletary and Matt Breida, and it's going to be a nightmare for Buffalo. And I think with getting Clyde Edwards-Helaire potentially back and Darrell Williams potentially back in the fold for the Chiefs, you have a run game plus the dynamic play of Patrick Mahomes. I mean, again, I can't go against the Chiefs until I physically watch somebody other than Tom Brady knock Patrick Mahomes off in the postseason. Give me the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, there is that logic again. Same thing with Brady, same thing with Mahomes. I mean, so again, fair points, and again, all signs could lead to maybe through Arrowhead. So we'll certainly see what happens. Again, all valid points can certainly see on both sides. And I'm assuming somebody's getting a text message on who they pick. So obviously that's kind of a funny side point there. But for you, Patrick, Chiefs, Bills, again, Bills 2-point underdogs on the road, which again, I think is giving them a lot of respect. You certainly saw maybe the best of the Bills, unfortunately, for the Patriots last Saturday night. So this Sunday night, I know it's kind of a tough one for you to pick in terms of who would you like, but who do you think wins here between the Chiefs and Bills?
It's not a tough pick for me. I don't care if this game is played in Alaska. I don't care if this game is played in Kansas City or Buffalo. John Gonzalez, this is the lock of the week.
Wow.
I'm feeling like Ian Book territory on this.
Oh, don't say that name. Come on.
Buffalo big. This
Wow.
is Josh Allen's coming out party. This is his time. If not now, when? I'm tired of these young quarterbacks having to wait their time. I think, look, Mahomes is great, but Buffalo's defense is very underrated. But this is about Josh Allen. Josh Allen's a unicorn. He's going to run the ball. He's going to pass the ball. They're going to win. I'm trying not to overthink it. Give me the siren, give me the horn, give me the buzzer, give me the TV, give me everything. Josh Allen's going to win. And it's going to be a shootout. When I say big, I don't mean like crazy.
Like 10, maybe 10 points, something like that.
Maybe
10 points.
10 at the most. To me, a big win in Kansas City is a win. So a playoff win in Kansas City is big. I definitely the over. If nothing else, take the over.
And you know what? To be fair, I mean, this Chiefs team has definitely at times looked much more mortal than it has in the past.
There's some chicks in the armor. They've righted the ship big time.
Oh, no question.
They're getting healthy. They're peaking at the right time. But if not now, when with the Chiefs to beat the Chiefs? I think this is the time you can kind of pick and choose what you've seen other teams do against them and kind of use it against them.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the Chiefs are in the boat that the Seahawks were in a few years ago, where it's almost like, okay, you've been to the mountain, you lost, you didn't repeat, and it's almost kind of like your make or break moment. So in a sense, I do kind of think that both teams, in a sense, actually are in the same boat, maybe for different reasons. So again, very, very interesting matchup. Can certainly see where both sides come from it. And then here, pretty much, Chris, you're the last person here to ask when it comes to the Chiefs and Bills Sunday night. I mean, who do you think wins and goes to the AFC Championship?
You know what? I'm with Bruce and Patrick on this one. I think it's Buffalo's time. You know what? Last year, Kansas City beat them in the championship game. Buffalo came back this year and beat them in the regular season. Beat them pretty good at Kansas City as well. And you know what? Yeah, Kansas City won 9 out of 10 down the stretch, and then 10 and 11 with the playoffs. But they really didn't beat anybody that good down the stretch, right? They beat They beat the Raiders twice, but you know the Raiders are right. There you go, good one. They beat San Diego. They weren't a playoff team.
No, Los Angeles, but yeah, still call them San Diego.
Right, you know, whatever. And they beat they
beat Green Bay without Rodgers. They beat Dallas, which you'd say definitely were pretenders. I mean, the Brute Force called it on that one. I mean, they beat nobody.
They beat Denver. You know, so I was impressed that they won the games, obviously. You know, 9 out of 10 against 9 out of 10 bad teams is still very good. But now you're playing against a team. I mean, we've seen what they did last week, right? They called it the first ever perfect game in football, something we don't hear about in football, right? We only hear that in baseball. But, I mean, Buffalo beat one of the best defenses in the league last week.
And we saw when they played on Monday night, the way New England played Buffalo. I mean.
Right. So that was impressive last week. Not just beating them, but beating them the way they did, beating that defense to nothing, outplaying Bill Belichick's, you know, great defense. So, and you know, Patrick said, you know, Buffalo's defense is underrated. They're like a top 2 or top 3 defense in the league. So I don't think they're underrated. I mean, this is.
No, I meant by like the critics and the analysts.
You're right, to a certain extent, I guess you're right. You know, but this is a team. They're going to win by 2 scores at least. It's going to be at least a carbon copy of what their last game was.
So I think the moral of the story here, before we move on, is that this weekend could see a changing of the guard when it comes to Brady losing, Mahomes losing, and then maybe, just maybe, coming out parties for a Joe Burrow, a Matthew Stafford. Does Josh Allen get a chance to maybe show that he can get to the big stage? And then will it be then Aaron Rodgers left standing for maybe his best shot or his last shot with Green Bay? So it seems
for me, it's a tale of 2 conferences with the old quarterbacks. I'm thinking Brady and Rodgers in the NFC, but then the young guys, no matter what, with Allen and Mahomes, because Mahomes is still young.
True.
Yeah, Kansas City's coming back. I'm not saying this is the end of
Kansas
City's reign.
No.
They'll be back next year. They're going to retool. They're probably going to end up with one of the top.
Yeah, but you know, Seattle didn't get back to the Super Bowl after they lost. What happened to them? I mean, they stayed in the postseason chase, but they didn't get back. I mean, listen, it's very tough. Like Justin pointed out, it's very tough to repeat in the NFL and win back-to-back Super Bowls and keep getting back there. I mean, it's very, very.
And usually the team that loses the Super Bowl has a bad year the next year. Not that Kansas City's having a bad year, but they could be in for a little bit of a loss this week for sure.
Well,
That's all.
we're gonna certainly find out, obviously, here, and
Yeah.
we're talking all things related here to the world of sports here for the half hour or so with 5 of my guys here, and that includes Chris Bizet, Patrick Trotty, and the brute force Brad Weiss, and Billy McInerney and Justin Gianelli, and I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce, and we're gonna break it here. It's gonna lead into our Hall of Fame discussion. Tuesday night, we will have a live show here talking about the Hall of Fame vote and everything that went down. Does somebody actually get elected here finally? Is it going to be the year of David Ortiz, Big Papi? And we will go live here on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And well, let's hope somebody gets it. I actually don't want it to be where nobody gets
Yeah, I don't want
I
a
know.
zero.
That's
I
so
don't want
goofy.
another empty
That is-
ballot.
That is so goofy. So let's hope that somebody does get inducted and we can have some good news. And we'll be live here. We'll see from the gang who wants to come on here. So I'm excited about that. So we'll see how my voice carries up here Tuesday because I'm live. I think I got Helena Razor, I got RP Davis, and I'm going live with the Baseball Hall of Fame. So we'll see. I'm going to be running a marathon. For wrestling terms, I'm going to be running an Ironman match, as they would say. So essentially, I'm going live 3 different times here. So obviously looking forward to that. But that's going to bring me then here. Tuesday is the big vote. Obviously, the talk is, do Bonds and Clemens get in on the last ballot? Big Papi looks like right now, if you've seen from the public vote, he should get in. But a lot of that old guard hasn't tipped their hand yet, and that could be enough to tip the balance and have Big Papi on the outside looking in, and certainly Bonds and Clemens. So I'm going to open it up first with the Talking Rivals guys, and that's Chris and Patrick, and map it out on what you think happens here this Tuesday. Does Big Papi get in? Do Bonds and Clemens finally get in? I mean, give me your thoughts here, Chris.
I think Big Papi's going to get in. It seems like he's trending that way. So I think he's going to get in. And even the commissioner has been pushing the whole narrative, like, don't go by that one positive test that he had in that list that nobody was supposed to see. And I think it was Jason Starks or someone mentioned that his numbers after that positive test didn't change. Like, they didn't go down like another player did, like, let's say, Ivan Rodriguez. But let's not get into that one. That's a whole other argument. But the Ortiz's numbers never changed after that year. You know, they were just still consistent. So I think he's going to get in. I think they have him, and he's a good guy. Everybody loves Ortiz, Big Papi. So he'll definitely get in. If he was not the nice guy, he probably would not get in, especially right away. But not sure if anybody else is going to get in. I really wish Bonds and Clemens would get in. They certainly deserve it, but I don't think they're going to get in. Like you said, the old guard is stubborn in that way. You know, I guess if you don't get along with those guys, you don't get in. So, but I think at least Ortiz will get in. I don't know if anybody else. I don't think anybody else is really trending that way.
I mean, Roland is going up in the ballot, but I feel like he's not going to get there.
Yeah,
and Helton is going up, and Andrew Jones, but I think they got a ways to go. Certainly, Helton and Jones. I think Roland, I could see getting in. I was speaking with actually somebody, and I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it for at this point, frigate. But I was speaking with Cormac Gordon, who used to write for the Staten Island Advance, and he was actually on the committee. He used to select, and he dropped off for different reasons. And he thought that Roland would get in because he thought that the old guard would appreciate the way he played, and his career is kind of similar to a Barry Larkins. So he thinks that he'll get voted in. He thinks that Ortiz would make it because he thinks that if you looked at Ortiz, the body of work, the way he ended his career, like his last 3 or 4 years, just on the back of his baseball card, he ended pretty much on a high. And certain writers might view that and say, you know what? He ended his career, with whatever, 30-plus home runs and 100-plus RBIs, and he ended where he didn't hang on to stack and pile. So that's one person's opinion who used to be a writer and had a stake on it. But for you, Patrick, obviously you got a lot riding on this, obviously with Big Papi, and obviously want to get your perspective. I'm sure you're on pins and needles here, but what do you think happens here? Does Ortiz get in and Bonds and Clemens? Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, first off, the great thing about this is what will happen and what the fans think should happen. And that opens a whole conversation for Tuesday. But I think what will happen is Big Papi gets in. And I think think Clemens gets in. I'm
Ooh,
not
okay.
sure.
Wow.
I'm not sure if Bonds gets in. You know what? I'll say all three of them get in. Whether they should or not, that's we'll get into that. But last I saw, I think it was like 40% of the ballots were released, trickled out so far, and Ortiz is trending around 83%. But that'll likely come down, so it'll be right at
He's
the
on the
line.
border. Yeah, he's on the border.
What I last saw was Roland was at 70%.
Yep.
So he's got. But to your point with the other writer you were talking to,
Yep.
the old school might bump him in. I don't think so. I think it's Ortiz, Clemens, Bonds, and Clemens. Just it might be by like a vote.
I feel like Ortiz is going to get in by the skin of his teeth, kind of like a Craig Biggio by a handful of votes Biggio got in, something like that.
Yeah.
Something tells me Bonds and Clemens won't make it. I don't think Roland makes it this year. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about this when the actual vote is released on a Tuesday. But, I mean, I don't think Roland makes it yet, but I think he'll get in. It's goofy. These writers, they'll eventually vote them in, but they have to boost their numbers up. It's almost like either you're a Hall of Famer or not, to Justin's point when it came to a Bruce Arians. So we'll see. I mean, that brings me to Mr. Justin Gianelli. And give me your thoughts then, Justin, on who do you think gets in on Tuesday?
Unfortunately, I think it's going to be an Ortiz only ballot this year. An Ortiz only induction. Just kind of what I'm looking at. I have the spreadsheet up of the Hall of Fame tracker. The concerning thing is, if you're looking at it from Bonds and Clemens' perspective, they're only a net +2 in terms of gained votes from returning voters. So, I mean, and they missed the election last year by over 50 votes. I don't know where those votes get made up. And, right now, Bonds and Clemens are trending right, just above the 75%, but that's currently based on what the public already knows. So, there's still, all these voters that, either keep it anonymous and don't make their ballots public, or ones who are going to still, maybe make it public over the next couple of days. So I don't think Bonds and Clemens are trending in the right direction, just because I don't think they're going to make it. I'm disappointed that Billy Wagner's not getting enough love on here. I think it's a little, it's a little bit concerning that he's only currently at 48.6% based on what we know. I think he continues to get disrespected in that regard, as a great left-handed closer, over 400 career saves, under 3 ERA. But again, I think we're probably looking at an only Ortiz ballot this year.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, listen, even Ortiz, I still don't think is a lock to get in. I don't think it's a guarantee.
You know what? He really isn't. And he's right now trending in a pretty solid direction, but he still needs exactly half of the votes. He needs to double his vote total. Like he currently has 147 votes, which is the most of any of the members on the Hall of Fame ballot. And you need 294. You need 294 votes to reach the 75% threshold. And right now Ortiz needs exactly half. He's exactly at half.
I don't know. I mean, I think he gets in, but I can see him with
it's gonna be very close. I'll tell you that.
I don't think he gets more than 3.
Which is why I think Bonds and Clemens may just miss out.
Is there any credence to the thought about them being on their last year on the ballot? Some writers because you know how baseball gets. If they can complicate it, they will. And there's a difference between first ballot and last ballot.
So you think maybe there's more anonymous voters that are going to put Bonds and Clemens on than we might be thinking? Because we've always thought that they're not making up as much ground as we thought. And, could it be a last year rush? I wouldn't say that would surprise me, but I'm just not getting a positive vibe. I'm not getting a positive feel that they are going to make it.
But don't they go on to that other ballot, the other committee that's coming up in December, I think it is, or next I think it's
the following.
Veterans. It would be next year.
Current era committee
the
or
Golden
the
Era committee, which took over for the Veterans Committee.
right. I
I
could
could
see them getting
yeah.
in with those guys.
I think so.
Possibly.
I mean, it's time to end the nonsense with the steroid users. I mean, I think we just need to evaluate their careers in full. I think we just need to.
And I always
evaluate
go with Bonds and Clemens again. Their body of work pre-steroids, they were Hall of Famers. I mean,
they were.
Stop the charade. Stop the nonsense. I mean,
Bonds was a two-time MVP with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Won an MVP his first year with the San Francisco Giants.
40-40 he was in 1996. I mean, he's got
over 500 stolen bases. He was a true 5-tool player when he was younger, and then all of a sudden he becomes the Incredible Hulk and just hits every single ball out of the ballpark.
And the thing with Bonds and Clemens, they were supposedly taking it right before they started testing.
Right.
So before they started testing, we really don't know how many people were using it.
A ton of them.
Yeah. Right. It could have been half the league. It could have been 70%. We don't know.
I think it was at least 80, Chris. I think it was at least 80%. I think
most of the league. Hey, I'm just throwing it out. So
100%.
Right. So it's like if most of the league was taking it, like how can you tell? Like, all right, Bonds was taking it, so was everybody else. So
yeah.
This is how I look at it.
The only one taking it.
Listen, this is how I look at it before I get Billy and the Brute Force in here. I mean, everybody in professional wrestling took steroids, and everybody said, we love them. They're great. Everybody just didn't care about it. So to me, I look at it like, to me, if they took steroids, they still got to go out there and hit the ball. They still got to go out there and run. And that's kind of my thinking on that. But hey, what do I know? I'm not a writer. I'm not voting on this, but for you, Billy, I mean, what do you think happens here? Does Ortiz get in? Do Bonds and Clemens get in? Or is there anything else that we're missing? Billy, you're on mute, Billy.
Sorry about that.
Okay. It happens.
I think we're looking at an empty ballot this year. I think Ortiz comes really close, and I think he should be in, but I think the steroid connection a little bit, I think being designated hitter is going to hurt him a lot more. I think you have guys who are willing to vote for him as a DH, but not first ballot, which I don't get. I hate designated hitter, but it's a position. He shouldn't be punished for playing it. So I think ultimately we see an empty ballot this year. Maybe Ortiz slips in, but I think he's in like 73, 74% range where it's sort of a formality that next year he's going in. But I think he just misses the cut by a couple of votes. Justin mentioned Billy Wagner. I think he absolutely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But look, relief pitchers don't go in the Hall of Fame unless they hold the active saves, the all-time saves record when they retire. He'll go in with like one of the committees when he's up for those, but he's not going in through the writers. It's just not. He has too much ground to make up.
But there is a point to what Justin had. I mean, Billy Wagner's career, he was in, he was out. I mean, he didn't really have a bad run. It wasn't like a John Franco who just hung on for dear life and compiled a bunch of saves and wasn't
There's
really.
upwards of maybe 10 people on this ballot that you can make a good case for.
Yeah, there are. Yeah. And I'm the biggest point that there needs to be more relief pitchers in the Hall of Fame, especially with the way the game is played today. But
no question.
Yep.
I'm not voting on this, and I just don't see Billy Wagner getting the votes to get in. I think he goes in eventually on one of the committees, but I don't think he's getting into the writers.
I always think even guys like a Rob Nen, who was kind of similar to a Billy Wagner, a really good career, probably didn't have a long career or long enough career. I mean, he was dominant for a
dominant stuff for Rob.
Joe Nathan too.
Tom Henke. Remember Tom Henke? Yeah. Tom Henke was another one to me.
The guy I don't understand that doesn't get enough love, and I always talk about him with Patrick, is Jeff Kent. To this day, I don't get it.
I'm sure we'll talk about him on Tuesday again when he gets his 27% of the vote. Whatever.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I mean, listen. I mean, we'll find out. I mean, I want to work the brute force in here. I mean, Brad, do you think anybody makes it to Cooperstown on Tuesday, or do you give us the same thought as Billy did and nobody makes the ballot?
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo most of what the guys said on this. I mean, there's no really debating or anything like this. I think we all kind of see it the same way. Yeah, I think David Ortiz has a chance. I think that he's going to be right on that line. We'll see where it ends up. But I think David Ortiz has a chance. I don't see Clemens. I don't see Barry Bonds getting in. I don't see anybody else getting in. Even you guys mentioned Scott Rowland, maybe in the future, but not now. Billy Wagner, I agree with you guys. I think he deserves a lot more respect. I think, Billy made a great point there. The way that baseball is played today, I think a lot more relief pitchers deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think that that's something that was a great point by Billy McInerney that I 100% agree with. But ultimately, like I said, I'm not going to go crazy on this one. I think it's pretty simple. I think David Ortiz, like everybody said, could be in, could be out. It's going to be debatable. And ultimately, I don't think anyone else makes it.
And I'm wondering one day, because I have to mention him because nobody else did, whatever happens to Alex Rodriguez in the Hall of Fame?
I don't think he gets in.
No.
If they're not letting these guys in, how are they going to let him in? Because he actually just got suspended because of steroids. Bonds never got suspended.
I still got to obligatorily mention his name.
I think
Nobody
that's
wants to hear his name.
that's the line in the sand, the suspension.
And this becomes easier in a few years when you get into the era of guys where they were testing and were suspending. I think it becomes a lot easier to then say, he got suspended for it. So it's not the same level of debate as with these guys where, who was using, who wasn't. There's a point where we kind of know who was using and we're coming up on those guys now. So in 4 or 5 years, it's debates.
Think about it. When he retires, it's gonna be exactly what damages Robbie Cano's case for the Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
You can make an argument. You can make an argument. He's had a hell of a career.
No, Cano would have been in the Hall of Fame.
100%. He's had a hell of a career, and for the position of second base, one of the better left-handed hitting second base.
Andy Pettit, right? Isn't Andy Pettit
another
example? Is a guy that, obviously what happened to him in the Mitchell report. I mean, you could have made the case that he should be a Hall of Famer, especially considering that nobody's going to really win more than 220 games. What Kershaw and Verlander are in the 200+ win range with Greinke. I mean, Nobody's going to get 300 wins again. So you'd think automatically Pettit would be. And I heard the Pinstripe Chronicles guy saying, yeah, Pettit should be a Hall of Famer. I mean, but
he tested positive, right? He admitted to it too. So
I also have to throw one other name out there, especially with everything going on, and he'll be on the ballot. He probably won't make it, but do you guys think Mark Burley ever jumps up in the votes enough to where he's considered? Because you think about everything going on, this would be kind of the guy that these old guard writers would probably want to push for to make the Hall of Fame based on his career stats.
To me, he was like a number 2 or a 3 starter mostly.
That's what I thought. We were talking
I looked at him as the ace. Here's the guy.
Two names for you is Jimmy Rollins, and to me, who I'm sold on now after reading a couple of great articles, Andrew Jones. Eventually.
No, I don't know about either one of them. And for me, when it comes to Andrew Jones, his career took too sharp of a decline for me to say that guy's a Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I'm with Justin on this.
Atlanta was great, and he was a great defensive center fielder. Had the 50+ home run season. I forgot what year it was, but I think his career fell off the cliff way too fast.
Yeah, he didn't have a dominant run like someone like Stanley Koufax did, where you can swallow the fast decline.
Yep.
He was someone who kind of needed to do it for longer than to do it at that level for longer than he did. I think I agree with Justin.
And as for Jimmy Rollins, that's an interesting case because he had a terrific career.
And he's someone that stats don't fully. I don't think they fully.
He's got an MVP also. Don't forget. That's a big deal.
The 2007 National League MVP.
They're going to look at these numbers differently. Like we're not going to look at, like the 3,000 hit plateau.
Chris sent me an article. Yesterday.
It's from The Athletic. If you guys get a chance.
Rollins.
The one on Rollins? Yeah, I read that one too. And it kind of it put it in my mind.
Sides, the yes and the no. So it wasn't
and think about it this way: the more younger writers that we get on the baseball in the Baseball Writers Association, the ones that have the vote, the more the conversation changes because A, that these are the guys that are covering the game today, and B, they're they'll be more understanding of the changing of the way the game is played. Some of these old time writers are stuck in the past and they're set in their ways. And
Jimmy
it's
Rollins
not
was
gonna,
an old school type of player.
Yeah,
Right.
that's why I don't
Speed,
understand why he has
a little more
hasn't
kind
gotten
of
If
it.
I said
sneaky
to you,
pop.
though, his numbers were similar to a Joe Morgan, what would you feel?
I would say then he should go in because Morgan's in, right?
Their numbers are kind of
He
identical.
played an
Morgan's a slam
above-average
dunk Hall of
Gold
Famer,
Glove
right? I think he was a
defense
first ballot,
at
He was
a
first
prime
ballot, no
position.
question.
and
And I
Morgan
look at-
played second too, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Jimmy Rollins, I kind of feel like has a stronger case than Andrew Jones because I looked at, again, to Justin's point, the last 5 years, the guy just it was like Bitcoin right now, just crashed really hard. Unfortunately for some of us here, but different conversation. But when it comes to Rollins, I look at his body of work and you know what, for a long period of time, I mean, the back of his baseball card, 470 lifetime stolen bases, 511 doubles, over 100 triples, 200 home runs, 2,400 plus hits, 1,400 runs scored.
Multiple Gold Gloves at a premium
For a
defensive
shortstop, that's
position.
pretty good.
Yeah,
That's and then me and Patrick we brought it up too. We were talking the other day together. Think about the shortstops in the National League at that time. Who was better than him?
It was right after Barry Larkin.
Right.
It was during Tulowitzki, Jose Reyes.
Yeah.
I mean, Rich Aurelia.
Rich Aurelia was 2 years for me.
Right,
He
yeah,
had
like
one
1 or
big
2
year and he got the
years.
big contract and was never the same again. Brooklyn's Rich Aurelia. But Rich Aurelia. Reyes, yeah. I mean, Reyes.
Yeah, another one. He had a nice little run too.
I don't think Reyes will make the Hall of
Yeah,
Fame
no,
for
no.
obvious reasons, but I mean,
And Rollins, it's funny Justin mentioned the younger writers. I think that actually might hurt Rollins because in that article that Chris referenced, they talk about the defensive metrics are not as friendly to Rollins as his reputation as a defensive player were. So I think some of the younger writers who are more analytically inclined, it might hurt Rollins' case to get in rather than help it.
Right.
Not good. Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. And I mean, like I said at the start, it's really interesting with baseball because it's what will happen and then what should happen, and everyone's opinions are I think the writers, I think it should be obligatory that you have to make it public, your vote. If you're to those who are giving great, it's a responsibility, I think, and you're given that right to basically stamp someone's future and kind of finish off the final say. You should make it public.
well, baseball.
That's why I have an issue with the blank ballots.
Last thing I'll say
those are embarrassing.
before we move on and get closing thoughts here is that baseball's Hall of Fame is definitely Shakespearean-like, unlike the other sports. So there's no question that it always seems to be a high stakes drama involved when it comes to baseball's Hall of Fame. And this will be a preview of what you'll get for us Tuesday night. We'll finalize the details on a time, but obviously we'll talk a lot more about this. But before we get closing thoughts, I want to bring the Brew Force in here, and I hate to ask you this because I'm watching the Knicks, and I was actually watching a lot of NBA the past couple of days, and I was even watching the Golden State Warriors, and I'm trying to figure out how the Indiana Pacers went back-to-back and beat the Lakers with Warriors with a lineup that could have been no different than the lineup maybe we see in the G League. But, I mean, the Brew Force, the Knicks are definitely, again, back to the doldrums, and I'm still trying to figure out how the Indiana Pacers, with pretty much nobody on their roster, back-to-back nights, beat the Lakers and the Warriors.
I hit the over last night on the total points. So
what was the on? Was it 208?
the over closed at 216.5, and it was one, and it went to overtime, but it was 110, it was 110 at the end of regulation.
Well, it was
So
one
straight cash.
was it 122, 117 was the final, I think?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. Brad, help me out here. Figure this out. How this all happened with the Knicks and the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, well, Tom, I was going pretty good, Tom. 6 for 6 on my picks, wins, all these other great things, and then you had to bring up this depressing topic. I mean,
I had to even it out. Listen,
listen, and Belly McInerney is rooting for the right team in Madison Square Garden right now. The team that, is one of the best teams in New York. I would actually say probably the best team in New York right now. And the New York Knicks are certainly not. And the New York Knicks are in a heap of trouble right now. They just lost 3 home games that They could have at least won one or two. You know,
They
you
should
talk
have
about.
won two. They should
I
have
mean,
won two.
you talk about, and listen, I was invited to go to the game. By the way, speaking of Jason Getz and James DeSimone, they invited me to go watch the game against the Hornets, and thank God I didn't because they played like straight garbage. All right, they played like straight garbage. I didn't want to be there for that nonsense. Okay, the last couple games they've embarrassed themselves. All right, and Julius Randle, let's just get to Julius damn Randle. This guy has been straight trash lately. I mean, this guy has been awful. I mean, this guy was an All-NBA player last year, an All-Star, a guy who was, averaging big-time numbers, galvanizing New York. We're all saying, New York, stand up. You guys all know all these different reactions I've had. And this season, I started the season by trying to give him hope and New York, stand up, and come on. And now I'm just back to the normal New York Knicks fan that I guess we're used to being. Ultimately, Tom Bryce, I'm going to say it, and I hope I can change my mind soon. I don't think the New York Knicks are making the playoffs. And I think this is the first week that I'm beginning to realize it. They really are in trouble. And yes, they might make a trade. I don't know what they're going to do. But the way that Julius Randle's playing, I mean, the schedule they have coming up is extremely difficult.
Brutal.
They have like 2 really long road trips coming up. I mean, they're in a heap. They're in trouble. I mean, they're relying on R.J. Barrett to be the best player, and he's just not. He's just a complimentary piece. And we all know Julius Randle's not the number one option. And this team right now, defensively, has not done the job. Offensively, they're not good enough. Evan Fournier only plays well against the Celtics. Kemba Walker, half the season is injured. Okay, I mean, we could go down the list. I mean, it's just depressing watching the New York Knicks once again. It reminds me of way before when the New York Knicks, got hot. Of when every time I had to come on this show, Tom, and talk about the Knicks, it was just depressing. And in the end, that is what it is. And ultimately, I have to tell the truth. Justin Giannelli could laugh all he wants because his team, with whoever seems to find a way to win. The New York Knicks right now, and I'm predicting it, are not going to make the playoffs.
You know what? I mean, and if you make the play-in, to me, that's not the postseason. You get bounced out with that. And the Knicks' schedule upcoming is brutal because they still have that road trip on the West Coast coming up with Denver, Utah, Golden State. I know Golden State's not the same and the Lakers aren't the same, but these are places that the Knicks historically never win, even when the Knicks are good. So you kind of feel like right now the Knicks had an opening with their schedule to kind of beat up on some teams. And the way Julius Randle played the other night, what did he have, like 4 points or 6 points? And he was like 1 for 9 from the field. I mean, yeah, I mean, certainly you're not feeling too good about him and this Knicks team right now, but we'll see. Obviously, they'll be back at the Garden Sunday afternoon against the Clippers, and they're on the road again, even for a mini road trip. It's going to be very tough and a really good Cleveland team this year, one of the biggest surprises in the league, and obviously Miami and Milwaukee. So Knicks could be in a world of hurt, but before we get closing thoughts, I did want to bring Justin in here and give us the Nets side, and I know Kevin Durant, though, is unfortunately going to be out for a little while.
Yeah, it's a big hit to the team. I mean, of course, it's Kevin Durant. And, fortunately right now, most of that stretch is a longer stretch where the Nets are on the road, which means Kyrie Irving is available to them. And, every bit of Kyrie Irving that you can have, the better. I mean, I basically wanted him off my team a couple of months ago, but, when it comes down to it, the Nets can't win a title without Kyrie Irving, and they can't win a title without these guys being healthy. So they need Kevin Durant to rest up. Kyrie Irving, dropped a nice 24 points tonight. Obviously tonight James Harden led the way with a brilliant 37-point triple-double. I mean, James Harden was in his element, but to me, the continued development of guys like Kessler Edwards and Day'Ron Sharpe, tonight, from an offensive standpoint, they weren't producing much, but, Day'Ron Sharpe in 14 minutes, collected 10 rebounds. So, I mean, they were getting the production. LaMarcus Aldridge off the bench tonight, gave them good minutes. They have a good collective team. What I can't figure out, and maybe this is the Kyrie effect, this team can't win for the life of them at Barclays Center. I mean, they're 12-11 this season at Barclays Center, and I believe they're like 17 The Nets are 17-5 away from home. So I mean, maybe it's best that they're on the road for this nice stretch because they got the.
Well, they didn't have the Islanders' luck because historically the Islanders, oddly enough, when they played at the Barclays Center, used to always, for whatever reason, win, and the Nets kind of have the opposite luck.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, they just seem at times they just seem lackadaisical. They sometimes will play down to their opponent depending on who they're playing, and fortunately for them, they get the Timberwolves. They get the Timberwolves on Sunday night. I mean, it's a game you got to win. Before a tough week. The next 3 games, say what you want about how dysfunctional the Lakers are right now, but that's still a team with LeBron James and Russell Westbrook. Then they got a tough matchup with the Nuggets on Wednesday night, which is a makeup game from an earlier COVID postponement. And then next Saturday night is the big matchup in San Francisco against the Golden State Warriors. So, I mean, and you're talking about one of the top teams out west. I mean, this is a huge week for the Nets, and the Nets need to continue to win games because, the organization might not see it as super important. I want the number 1 seed because I think that's exactly why they lost last year. I think it's exactly why they lost last year.
Oh, it could be. I mean, could be.
That's an interesting point by Justin Gianelli. You want that 1 seed because there's a lot of Nets fans out there that wouldn't mind you guys slipping a little bit because the Nets actually love road games. I mean, they actually want to play on the road. So, I mean, there's some Nets fans out there, and obviously, Justin, you're not one of them. But there are some Nets fans that wouldn't mind the Nets slipping a few spots. And
because that also adds availability for Kyrie Irving.
Right, exactly. Even though we'll see what ends up happening with paying fines and stuff like that in the postseason, because in the end the Nets might pay up to play get Kyrie Irving in home games. So we'll see about that. And quickly, Tom, before we end this,
sure.
Justin mentioned some of those young players who are playing well for the Brooklyn Nets. That leads me right into my shout out for the Long Island Nets, and they're certainly winning some games recently. I just want to make sure I give them a shout out.
But I saw it was a birthday and you got to give a birthday wish to Wade Richardson because I saw it was Wade Richardson's birthday.
Wade Richardson, my guy, the community relations guy, and one of the game presentation coordinators for both the Long Island and Brooklyn Nets. So I want to give him a shout out and a happy birthday, belated. So certainly that's the case, and also, there are rumors, and we'll see what happens. But next month, it looks like I might get a whole bunch of tickets to a Long Island Nets game for my players and all these different things, and maybe for you guys. So maybe we'll see each other at Nassau Coliseum in about a month.
Well, we'll certainly see. Obviously, we'll keep our fingers crossed, but most importantly, let's hope your players get that chance to go out there and see some professional basketball.
And I can't even imagine what that Long Island Nets team has gone through, because left and right, the Brooklyn Nets have needed them because of guys not available, and they went through that long period where they had 8 guys out on COVID, and they tried to fill an 8-man roster, so they were plucking from the G League left and right. The next thing you know, and that's what happens with the minor leagues. You're basically left with scraps because they're needed up in the NBA.
Right.
Oh,
I can only imagine.
Look at the NHL. I mean, listen, the Islanders have had so many different guys, and they've had to use it. That's just sports right now between the NBA and the NFL and the NHL. So obviously, those are things that we'll consider. We'll definitely talk a lot about that, I'm sure, in the coming weeks, because unfortunately, the way it is looking with baseball, I have a feeling I'm going to be shifting to a lot of basketball. So some of us may stay, and I don't know. We'll see what happens on some of us, but we're going to keep our fingers crossed that the owners and players do get it right, because I really would be very disappointed if there's no baseball to talk about here in a couple of weeks. But we don't have that problem right now for a while, thank God. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, and we'll see what happens, and we'll get some closing thoughts here. So I'm going to start with Billy McInerney here for some closing thoughts. And Billy, always good to have you, my friend. Always enjoy your presence, and want to give you the floor. Want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything you want to talk about, please do. Any social media you want to plug in. I can't thank you enough. And also congratulations, because next Friday we'll see the great King Henrik Lundqvist. We'll see his number retired at the Garden. So obviously we'll look forward to seeing that here next week. And I can't thank you enough, my friend. And the floor is yours.
Thanks, Tom. Always happy to be on. You can catch me on Twitter at WMCINE. Super excited for Hank Night. Going to be real emotional for a lot of Rangers fans, especially.
Are you going to be there, by the way?
Sorry?
Are you going to be there?
No, I'm not. I'm going to be home. Yeah, that's what it is. Gonna be real emotional for a lot of Rangers, especially my generation that grew up watching him. As with playoffs, the last thought I want to kind of give is this: good comp. I think Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I think Josh Allen is the Peyton Manning to Patrick Mahomes' Tom Brady. Both excellent quarterbacks. I think Mahomes can be with a lot more Super Bowl success. So that's what I'll use with this week.
That's a good one. Obviously, again, you can follow Billy McInerney on Twitter at WMCINE. That's a good point you made also on the Rangers when it comes to Lundqvist. And I would certainly, when it comes to statistics, and I've had this conversation before here in the past, certainly in the summer, I think he is arguably one of the greatest New York Rangers pound for pound statistic-wise, because no question, Messier had a presence. Gilbert had a presence. You want to throw in Richter and Leach and maybe even a Rod Gilbert. But I look at what Lundqvist did for a long body of work. He might statistically be the greatest New York Ranger. I mean, he may not be the greatest all time because of Messier and everything else, but you could make that case based on his statistics that he might be.
I think he was the greatest goalie to never win a Stanley Cup. How's that?
Yeah. I would say that.
Right?
Fair.
Yeah, you know what? I'm trying to think. Mike Vernon won one, so I would take him.
What
off
about
the
Cujo?
list.
Would you put Cujo over him?
No,
right? I would.
Lundqvist got to one cup in 2 conference finals, and Curtis Joseph got to 2 conference finals, I think, in his career.
Never
maybe
to
2.
a cup, though, right?
Never to a cup. Yeah, that's a good comparison because Joseph played a long time with St. Louis, Toronto, a number of different teams, but never quite won the big one. That's a good one. You know what? I think Lundqvist I would put.
When you look at all-time wins, that was the one name that came up, and I said maybe him. But there's another old-timer, right? Earlier, I'm talking.
Did John Van Beerswick win a Stanley Cup? Because he was another one that had a long career, won a lot of games. Florida, Rangers.
I think he ever won one.
John Van Beerswick was very good for a long period of time.
Yeah, I don't think he won a cup, and I don't think he's got as many wins as.
No, because he kind of hung on. He was kind of a stack compiler. I don't think he had as many games as a starter because he rotated a bit, but he had a very good career. That's a good analysis. I mean, I'm trying to think of goalies.
The guys that are above him are Brodeur, Patrick Roy, Fleury, Luongo. Oh, Luongo. Did he?
I don't think Luongo's
no. Luongo.
He's got more wins, but do you put him above him though?
I'm pretty biased, so I'm going to stay out of this one.
The only thing I would say about Luongo is, correct me if I'm wrong, Luongo played longer than Lundqvist.
Yeah, I believe so.
He played 3 or 4 more years longer than Lundqvist.
I would say he had much better
Florida
teams
and
in front of
Vancouver.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lundqvist played 15 years. Luongo 20.
And he played on some bad teams, Luongo. Some bad teams. I mean, Islanders, Florida.
Teams, though. Those Canucks teams they had the Sedin twins. Those Canucks teams were good.
Ed Belfour won a Stanley Cup. Did Ed Belfour win one with Dallas? Am I thinking?
Dallas beat Buffalo in the 1990
99?
Stanley Cup.
99?
Yeah, 99.
Yeah, that goal with who was it? I can't remember the name now, but the skate in the paint back when that was a rule.
Was it Neuendijk that scored that goal? Am I thinking?
No, I want to say it was Hull for some reason.
You might have been
Another
right.
guy in the top 10.
Give me the
Tony Esposito.
But Tony Esposito is Tony Esposito.
Right,
I mean,
he's 10th in wins.
And Eddie Giacomin's in the Hall of Fame.
During that long drought of not winning.
He's got no cup.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Eddie Giacomin's in the Hall of Fame.
Yes,
I think so.
So Lundqvist is getting in the Hall of Fame. There's no discussion about that.
There's a lot of Rangers history without a cup.
And I think, the Rangers haven't won many Stanley Cups. I mean, that's obvious.
Right.
Not to take a shot at the Rangers, but that's just the way the ball bounces. I mean, listen, the Islanders haven't won much other than their 4 run as well. But, listen, Lundqvist will get in. My point was, I think, all-time New York Ranger, just because of his stats, he very well, to me, might be the best one. And, again,
the only one you can compare is Leach, I think, really.
Yeah.
I think everyone else, I think Lundqvist was better than.
Leach only because he
Le-
won a cup, right? You give him that little bit of an.
And I
A
feel like
little bit, and what Leach did as a defenseman, I genuinely think Leach is the second best defenseman to ever play hockey, behind only Bobby Orr. He was that good.
Wow.
Some of the because he was a solid defender.
two-way
He was
defenseman. Yeah, two-way
Yeah.
defenseman. It's a good point.
magician with the puck. So
Yeah, I mean, Leach had a 100-point season. He won the Norris Stanley Cup playoff MVP. I mean, Leach did
Yeah.
have a very good run. I don't know if his run though was as long as Lundqvist's, but that's a fair comp. That's a fair comp. Obviously, those are things that I'm sure we'll definitely get into, and obviously good to have you, Billy. And I'm still planning to do a hockey one. I got to get everybody on the same page. It's hard because some guys are busy and other guys aren't, and we've been doing a million different things. But I want to give the floor to Chris here. Chris, I want to give you some closing thoughts. Plug any social media, anything else you want to say. I'm looking forward to Tuesday's show, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks for the support of the shows. I'm looking forward to this weekend's games. I'm looking forward to next week's matchups between Tennessee and Buffalo and Green Bay and the Rams as our final four. Definitely looking forward to Monday's show with Patrick on Talking Rivals, and you can follow us on @TalkingRivals on Twitter. We're going to be doing our American League West division all-time.
I'm looking forward to that. I enjoyed the Twins guy you had from the Twins trivia website.
Yeah.
That was a very good.
Yeah, it was
discussion.
pretty cool. It went a
I
little
like that a
long, but
lot.
it's good. And I told him I was doing the West today, and I was looking at the A's just have incredible players from. Oh my God! Holy, Justin, I know that's got to be hard to do 4 out of those guys, let alone a whole lineup. I mean,
and I haven't got the AL West yet.
Ridiculous.
And even Texas had
players.
some really, really good players too. Don't sell the Rangers.
Oh
short.
yeah,
The
no,
Rangers had-
absolutely. I was looking at it too. I said, "Oh man." But the easiest one I did today was the Mariners. I basically did that one. That was pretty
that's an easy one. I could pretty much name you those 3 or 4. It's obviously going to be Ichiro, Griffey,
right,
Randy Johnson, and I guess I throw in Edgar Martinez. That'd be my 4, right? That's the 4.
Exactly. I don't think Randy's not the pitcher. I think Felix Hernandez is the pitcher. That's the best one of them.
I associate Randy more with the Diamondbacks, I think.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I could listen. King Felix.
Yeah, and I had Randy on the top 4 for the D-backs.
So
okay, all right, that's fair.
Looking forward to that, and then when
Randy Johnson, but I could certainly see.
you can go either way. You talk about
symbolically, and I'm sure we'll get this on Monday's show. Symbolically, I would have went with Randy Johnson because I still remember as a kid what he meant to Seattle. But again, his most dominant years are as a D-back, so that's fair. But that'll be a fun discussion to say the least. We're definitely looking forward to that and Tuesday's show. And Patrick, I want to give you the floor, my friend. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Any social media you want to plug, and I can't thank you enough. And I'm looking forward to Tuesday's show live here on the Hall of Fame vote with you, my friend.
Yeah, thank you for having us, and it'll be fun on Tuesday. It's always good to jump on Friday and talk some playoffs and whatnot. And you can find me at Patrick Trotty, and you can find Chris and I at Talking Rivals on Twitter. We'll be doing the show on Monday, and then little double dip on Tuesday. We'll do the Hall of Fame talk, and that'll be fun and come up with some interesting questions. I saw something on Twitter saying, who is the Hall of very good players, like a statue-worthy player, but not quite Hall of Fame? Because there are a lot of good ones on the ballot that, we'll kick around all the names on the ballot because there's no shame in being on the ballot and just not quite in the Hall of Fame. Like we mentioned, even Andrew Jones, Jimmy Rollins, all those players, good players, but,
I think Bobby Abreu and Kenny Lofton and Ryan Howard. I mean, it's a long list of very goods. Torrey Hunter.
Yeah, and then there are just some that are you just like, look, good player, but no.
No way. Yeah, no way.
No way. And I feel bad for guys like that because it's like you're looking at the numbers.
Full pension,
so.
Good point, Bill. I'm with Billy on that. They're getting paid.
10 years is the full pension mark, so they're fine.
Yeah, no. Look, they're financially they're set. They could care less what.
But I'm looking forward to that maybe Hall of Fame, very good discussion on Tuesday's show. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah, like a David Wright, like a what if they kind of.
Yeah, he's in Don Mattingly territory for me. Had like the 5 great years, and you can probably get like 20% in the ballot.
I said, a statue or a plaque or something outside the stadium with the team, but not quite Hall of Fame.
No way. No, but there are some, again, like a Torrey Hunter, Jimmy Rollins you mentioned. I would still throw in Mark Burley, that they're going to definitely get a lot of votes, but they're not quite Hall of Famers, but they had a long career. So that's a cool one. We'll definitely, I'm sure, work that in on Tuesday's show. And Justin, I want to give you the floor, my friend. Obviously, can't thank you enough for all that you do for us. Looking forward to your next show with the Baseball Banter Show. And any social media you want to plug, please do. And the floor is yours, and I can't thank you enough.
Sure. Yep. We'll be coming out with the AL East. I have already recorded it. I just have not been able to, upload it yet because of everything going on this week. And I want to, congratulate Billy on, Hank with, getting his number retired. Certainly from a Devils fan, a Ranger that I always had a lot of respect for. One guy you could just never hate. Although I will say my favorite memory is Adam Henrique poking in that goal in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. But, that was a great day. But, no, in all seriousness, well deserved for Lundqvist. That's for sure. But you could follow the Baseball Banter Twitter at bballbantersm. You can follow my personal Twitter at jgnelly12. And we'll keep on rolling with the Mount Rushmore. Probably sometime during next week, we'll start the AL Central. So there's only 2 more divisions left for me to record, and you'll find out who makes the AL East lists for the 5 teams, and away we go.
Good luck with Tampa Bay.
I mean, it's already filled out.
Oh, okay. That's right.
It was actually. I will say Tampa was difficult for finding the player number 4. The first 3 were pretty simple.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to hearing that. And I enjoyed the show so far. It was kind of fun. And just listening to those, I played it throughout the week. So I look forward to doing the same thing with that. So keep up the good work. And again, congratulations also to Billy on Henrik Lundqvist. So obviously a lot of good news in the work. And it's a good time to be a Rangers fan. Obviously, Adam Fox in the year he's having, again, he's certainly matched what he did last year. And Chris Kreider's on way, I think, to have the best year of his career as well. So a lot to like if you're a Rangers fan for a change. And that certainly brings me, not the best for last, but definitely the biggest for last year, and that is the brute force Brad Weiss, a very well-dressed brute force Brad Weiss, a very sharp-dressed man. To quote ZZ Top one more time here, clearly he is no Billy Gibbons because he is a lot more sharper and a lot more cleaner, but he's definitely not singing the blues for us like ZZ Top did because he has had quite a week, 6 for 6 in his picks. SJC, our Golden Eagles, got, I think, one of the best wins we've had in a long time on Wednesday, the way we played on the road, and obviously his own team and his alma mater, Plainview JFK for the boys JV basketball team, is doing a phenomenal job on a record-winning streak. So, Brute Force, I want to give you the floor. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of plugs, and I turn it over to you. You know the drill, my friend, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for another great week of Friday Night Live here on the Sports Report. Thank you, Chris, Billy, Justin, Patrick, for coming on. Had a lot of fun once again with the NFL playoffs. Just to make sure before I plug my social media, John Gonzalez, listen clear one more time. Okay, you are to pick the Cincinnati Bengals, the Green Bay Packers, the Los Angeles Rams, and the Buffalo Bills. If you pick those 4 teams, all right, I think you're going to do a good job this week. So, John Gonzalez, and for all listening, those are the 4 teams I'm picking to win this week. 3 of them on the road. So, John Gonzalez, you said it last week. All right, pick the road teams. I didn't do it last week, but this week, 3 or 4 road teams. So, there you go. All right, my social media is at BWeiss20 on Instagram, at BradWeiss20 on Twitter, and searching Bradley Weiss on Facebook. I want to make sure I give a shout-out to those Plainview JFK Hawks. They aren't watching at this hour, which they are supposed to not be watching, because I told them to go to sleep because we got a 10 a.m. game tomorrow against Baldwin High School, who Baldwin in the varsity level is ranked number 3 on Long Island. And their
Baldwin's always good. Baldwin has always been good.
Yeah, so props to our varsity team, though. That was ranked 16th in the Sweet 16. So that matchup tomorrow is the 3rd best team against the 16th best team, according to LongIslandBasketball.com on Long Island. So it's going to be really exciting. I'm looking forward to it, certainly. I got to get another nice shirt and tie ready for tomorrow morning. So I'll be back in this dress code going tomorrow. Tom Bryce, to your point about the SJC Golden Eagles, it was a very impressive win. You know, it was coming off a loss, a very tough loss, where they were winning majority of the game against Manhattanville and just lost there at the end. They come back and rebound against the Sarah Lawrence team that's been pretty good in this conference the last couple of years. And, listen, we say it every week, and it sounds like rhetorical, but, it's the same thing with the way he's winning awards at this point. This guy, Alec Tabata, is something special. And Tom, I'm going to go this far. He's not only one of the best – obviously, he's one of the best rookies in the Skyline. He's obviously, I think, one of the best players, and I think the best player on the SJC Golden Eagles. But I'm going to go as far as saying that he's one of the best players in the entire Skyline Conference. All right? He's playing that well right now. And I'll give him a shout-out, too, because he gave me a follow on Instagram. Appreciate it, Alec.
He did, too. 2 for 2 for us. Same thing here.
Certainly, Alec is playing some great basketball, Tom. Another game, 22 points, 4 steals, 8 rebounds. This guy's all over the place. So Alec's been tremendous. Spencer Malloy with the 14 and 12 double-double. In his return, he just came back a few games ago. You talk about Tim Hurd, coming off the bench in this game with 12 points. Matt Hurd with 12 points.
Oh, Matt hit a big three to put us up 15. And I think I hadn't heard an SJC bench that loud since John Matejko was the head coach.
Yeah, certainly, because they're winning. And they're a 500 team right now. And it's been a while. Obviously, I know that. It's been a while since you could say late in the season that you're a 500 team. So they're doing great things. Obviously, a credit to Coach Mike McSloy, Coach Mantesta, Coach Gaudiezzo, and, of course, the Cincinnati Bengals fan, who I'm telling you they're going to win, Billy Heenan. So I hope you hear that loud and clear. So I want to make sure those SJC Golden Eagles get a shout-out. And then the last thing, Tom, I'm just going to do a little bit of a promo real quick, all right, because you guys can see I got a little bit of a haircut today. And I want to make sure my barber, Sal the Barber, gets a shout-out here on the Sports Report because he's a supporter. He certainly loves to hear us, and he listens to a lot of our clips. So I want to give Sal the Barber a shout-out. You can follow him on Instagram at SalTheBarber91. He wants to make sure that you guys come and support and also get your nice cut. He's
he out of business if he's cutting my hair.
Well, listen, he does a great job, and if you guys want a great haircut from him, make sure you go to Michael's Barbershop in Hicksville. Tell him that the Brew Force Brad Weiss sent you, and he will certainly be really happy. So be sure to do that. Shout out to Sal the Bar for giving me a nice cut and getting me ready for 2 big games. 1 win yesterday, and Tom Bryce, I'll say it right here. I'm feeling good about a great game tomorrow against Baldwin, and I hope I come back next week with some positive, encouraging news on that as well. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, and we'll see what happens in the NFL playoffs. And John Gonzalez, one more time, make that right decision.
I will say one thing here. If I were to get a haircut, and that ain't happening anytime soon, Sal the Barber is definitely the guy in beautiful Hicksville. We will give him a shout out on Instagram, Sal the Barber 91. Certainly, I don't think I'm getting a haircut anytime soon, but certainly we'll make sure we forward as much business as we can to Sal because Sal supports us, and the old adage is we always support those that support us. So, Sal, I can't thank you enough for your friendship and your support for doing a great job, obviously, and listening and sharing our stuff. And make sure everybody follows Sal the Barber over at Michael's Barbershop in beautiful Hicksville. And that reminds me, when I was a kid, I used to go to Luigi the Barber. So Sal the Barber, we're moving up a little bit. We had Luigi back in the day. Now we have Sal. But obviously, shout out to Sal. And most importantly, shout out to our SJC Golden Eagles. I want everybody to follow the men's basketball team on Instagram at SJCMBB, Twitter, SJC_MBB. And what a win that was. And that was a personal win for Coach McSloy because he beat a very good friend of his who's an assistant coach at Sarah Lawrence, and Sean Flores, of course, who we know was an assistant at John Jay and was a coach at CCNY. So I know for Coach Gaudiezzo and Coach McSloy, they won't want to admit it, but they were definitely very happy that they beat Coach Flores' teams. But in all seriousness, a huge win for the program. 3-3 in the conference. We haven't been 3-3 in the conference since you were playing that freshman year. We're 7-7. That's the longest that we've been 500 this late in the year since February 28th, 2015. So it's been almost 7 years. That's this late in the season. We're at 500. So the boys are definitely way ahead of schedule. Alec Tabata, 3 straight weeks. He pulled it off the hat trick, being Conference Rookie of the Week here in the Skyline Conference. He's on his way to winning the award outright. Spencer Malloy comes back, has one of his best games in a while. Matt Hurt and Timmy Hurt. Those were the X factors for me watching Wednesday's game. I was talking to the Brute Force during the game, and for me, Timmy Hurt makes the difference for this team because Timmy gives us that depth, and Matt hit back-to-back threes for us. He made some big plays for us. Also, got to give a shout-out to Gordon Scheuer. Gordon is always listening to us. I'm always speaking with Gordon. Gordon hit some big free throws for us, and he's the guy that's calming this team down because they got pressed, and Sarah Lawrence comes back. They're up 21. They get within 6, but I think Gordon's presence, his veteran leadership, helped us to get the job done and get over the finish line. Also, got to give a huge shout out to guys like Kevin O'Halloran. Kevin's always supporting, listening to our stuff. Jake Gordiello in the flow. Ryan McNeely. Ryan McNeely's always liking our stuff. Got to give him a huge shout out. The entire team cannot thank them enough for their friendship and support. Shout outs always to Coach McSloy, Coach Gordiesso, Coach Heenan, Coach Mantesta. It was Coach Mantesta's birthday earlier this week, the Brute Force, so make sure we give him a huge happy birthday as well. Anthony Ferrafino, got to give him a huge shout out because he made some big plays for us in the Sarah Lawrence game. So a lot to like. Also want to give a follow to the Plainview Athletics team. Also POB Athletics for us on Instagram, the Brute Force. Make sure everybody follows the program and all the great things that you guys are doing. So obviously, that is what you've heard from here tonight. We've talked the NFL, Hall of Fame, NBA, NHL. Unfortunately, some sad news with Clark Gillies, but I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. Alongside me tonight was Chris Pizzea of the Talking Rivals and Liftoff Jets, Patrick Trotty, esteemed author with a book out, and of course, also the Talking Rivals, Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter, Billy McInerney, formerly of Elite Sports, and the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, of course, of our Long Island Nets. Level Up, Plainview Athletics, boys JV basketball team, the legendary SJC Golden Eagle, and I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. We will be back here Monday night. We will be back here with Franco Varga, pro wrestling star, 7 p.m. Eastern time, coming off his huge match with former world champion of Impact Wrestling and WWE star EC3. We'll get ready for him in his match with Big T. We'll also have, going to break it here before we go, the women's basketball coach for our John Jay College Bloodhounds. That's Linda Day, the Brute Force. And John Jay, the women's team, is in their own right 3-0. And I have heard from Coach Day and our SID, Brandon Field, and they give their regards to you, Brute Force, because obviously you competed a lot against my Bloodhounds. So I want to make sure that we recognize Coach Day. And Coach Ryan Highland gives his regards. We will certainly have Coach Highland back on as well in the coming weeks. We have spoke with, obviously, the SID, so we're going to have that Monday at some point with Coach Day, and we'll be back also throughout the week with the Talking Rivals guy with the Hall of Fame talk. So my voice is about to go, so we are going to go here also on sportnarium.com/player, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and good luck to the Brute Forces teams also this week. And we have some big games coming up. We had a big win tonight. We'll be back tomorrow morning. So if you're on sportnarium.com/player, you'll get the sit-down marks here in about 5 minutes or so. You'll also have new shows tomorrow from the Pinstripe Chronicles, Neil Villapiano's Devil's State of Mind, and some other shows as well in the UK and elsewhere. So we'll be back, obviously, Monday night with Franco Varga, pro wrestling star, world champion. And for the rest of the gang, Tuesday night, if you're on sportnarium.com/player, hang on tight here for a few minutes as we'll have those sit-down marks. And I thank everyone for listening and watching. Thank everyone for their support as we'll be celebrating our 3-year anniversary next week. So looking forward to all of that and that climax, especially for Brad and Billy because they've been here for most of the journey. So I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. We'll be back here Monday, and everybody have a great weekend and stay safe out there. All right, so let's go like this. And then... There we go. Almost couldn't find the pen there. All right. Anybody have anything they want to say before we boot out here and say goodbye? Anything anybody want to address real quick?